All right, I think we are live. Welcome everyone to another live Q&A here on the Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you guys are all having a great weekend so far, and thanks to all of you who have joined in already here into the live stream. So like all the usual live streams here, we're going to go for between an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'll always be giving priority answering to anyone who's a member, as well as anyone who does a super chat or super thanks there. And so Wild Frame says, this is the perfect time for me. Bulgaria is 1900 hours here. So that's awesome. You're watching all the way from Bulgaria. Thank you so much for joining and for being a member as well, Wild Frames. And Me Not You, thanks for joining. Dragon Car Guy, Challenger Chris, and Kyle. Thanks, everyone. Hope you're all having a great weekend. So my weekend was pretty good so far, just because the start of the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix is this weekend. There's always this week-long series of car events, essentially, and it accumulates. Wow, I can't talk today. Till next weekend, where there's a big show. It's some people have even considered it like the Pebble Beach of the East Coast in a way, and it's really this awesome event. Anyone, by the way, if you're anywhere remotely close to Pittsburgh, definitely check it out some year if you can, because it's definitely a very special, very cool event. There's actual racing on the little street that runs between the golf courses, and it's a bunch of vintage race cars, and some pretty high-end stuff comes out as well. Some like vintage Maseratis that are worth like $1 million that are racing around and stuff. Really cool stuff. And so anyway, this whole week is always like car mania, and there's like stuff all over the place. And so just yesterday, just cruising down the highway, you just see so many cool cars. I saw a Ford GT, the new one, and I think it was actually the first time I've ever seen a Ford GT out in the open. And it's been forever they've been out, but I've never actually seen one driving around on the roads until yesterday, and that was really sweet to see. And so let me know if you guys had any fun car spots here this weekend. But obviously it's one of the great things about the summer, especially here on the East Coast, when that's when everyone has to get their cars out. So Matthew says, hello, first live I've joined, excited. Thanks for joining us, Matthew. I appreciate you joining here. And Kyle says, I finally saw a Hummer EV on the road. Oh, that's awesome. There's a couple in my area that I see on a rare occasion, but I mean, those things, they're really not building them very quickly. So it's a pretty rare find. So I'm sure that was a very impressive thing to see on the road. Thanks for joining in as well. And so Gabriel says the Ioniq 5N looks cool. Hope it sells well. Yeah, we'll see how the pricing is on that. Like I said in my weekly update, I think it's awesome as well. And we'll just see. I mean, I'm pretty confident it'll do pretty well. But I mean, a lot of people are saying the Kia EV6 GTs are sitting around on dealer lots. So maybe there's not a ton of interest in something in that price range and that performance level, for the Kia and Hyundai brands. We'll have to see. But I hope it does well. I personally love it. It'd be, kind of added another vehicle to my potential like dad car wish list if I ever needed something with 4 doors and a usable back seat. That could be, I mean, that's going to be expensive. And there's a lot of other really fun stuff for way cheaper that I'd probably go for first. But if I wanted to burn 70 grand or whatever it's going to cost, that would probably be right up there. Truck and Car Guy says, I've seen a couple of Rivians near me, and Kyle says he's seen some as well. There's a couple of Rivians around here that I've been seeing pretty consistently too. And especially, I love them that dark green color that they come in. It's a really nice look. And Wild Frame says hot hatch EV. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how people react with their wallets, I guess. And Truck and Car Guy said, I think people have been burned by dealer markups as far as the Rivians being out there a bunch. Yeah, I think it's also that, and just the fact they're finally ramping up production. They're finally getting used to building cars at a decent rate, and everyone that's had these cars on order for years is now finally getting a lot of theirs as well. I think that's one of the huge things. I was talking about at the end of the weekly update about how there's a slowing demand for some of these EVs. And someone pointed out in the comments, which is rightly so, Tesla's still on fire with their sales. A lot of that, I think, is the fact they're insanely cheap. I don't think that should be. I think that should be emphasized a little bit more. Is it's mostly price, because at the end of the day, people just care about money. But I think the dealer markups certainly kind of play into that, and just having to be able to avoid the dealer experience at Tesla and Rivian is a huge perk for those brands. I mean, yes, especially Rivian doesn't have a great service network, but they're trying to figure it out, and I commend those brave people that went out and got the Rivians, and they're taking a chance on it. Two says, back to a few weeks ago, car movies. Would Transformers be a consideration for car movies? I think so. There's a lot of, mobility devices, I guess you could call them, in the Transformers movies. That's another movie series though I've never actually watched, which I know might be crazy for some people, but just never got around to watching them. But I've heard good things about them, Michael Bay and all that, but I've heard good things about them. And Kyle says, my local Hyundai dealer has so many Ioniq 5s and 6s sitting on the lot, at least 10 to 15 of each model. Wow. That's surprising because it's been a little while since I drove past my Hyundai and Kia dealers, maybe a couple of weeks, but I feel like they didn't have any in stock around here. I'd be curious to know, Kyle, what state you live in, just because sometimes some of that stuff comes down to regional stuff. But that's interesting. There's them sitting on the lot anywhere. And this is why, I hate to harp on it again, but anyone who's looking for a good deal, if there isn't a good deal on whatever you want in your area, expand your search radius. Look all over the country because, if I'm trying to get an Ioniq 5 and the dealer around my corner might be trying, we're going to do it for 5 over or 10 over. And then I go to wherever Kyle lives and there's 15 of them sitting around and they're probably offering discounts, So it really, if you have the free time at all and a little bit of extra patience, you're much better off, calling around and buying out of state. Most of the cars I've bought in the past 10 years have been bought out of state because all the dealers around here are crappy. So, I'm like, well, I want this car, but I'm not going to pay markups or deal with idiots. So I'm going to go out of state to, good dealers. And sometimes it's what you got to do. Okay. Cal says in New Jersey. Well, that's great. So, New Jersey, I know they definitely were one of the states that was favored for some of the regional rollouts as far as the Genesis, GV60. That was only New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, California, and a couple other states. So there's probably a higher concentration, I'm assuming, in New Jersey. But still, that's impressive. There's that many of them. So we will see what happens with all this EV stuff. Garth Walker says, spoke to a cool owner of a Jag F-Type yesterday at a gas station. They're stunning cars. Sadly, owner said every year the car costs him $5 to $7 grand in repairs / maintenance. Yikes, that's horrible. Hopefully, I don't know why they didn't just buy an extended warranty. You could buy a warranty for $5 grand easy and save yourself a ton of money. But that's the thing. Any European car you're buying used, I strongly recommend an extended warranty if you're going to do something like that. And even then, you got to have the patience of still having the warranty cover work and, missing out on not having the car while it's in the shop. So used European stuff is only for the high risk tolerance folks out there, in my opinion. But the F-Types are amazing cars for sure. But it's a shame that it's not a solid car for them. And Ryan says one of the most underappreciated sports cars out there. I think that they definitely had their day in the sun. It's just that they've, I think kind of the hype faded whenever they quit the marketing budget for them. They had extensive marketing campaigns, tons of commercials. They're giving them to every celebrity in the world to drive for the first couple of years and, really getting a lot of hype generated. And then I think after that, they kind of just lost interest and walked away from it for whatever reason. Yeah. And Garth Harker says also same gas station, spoke to an owner of a new Z. He loves it, but pissed he paid 85 grand, but really wanted it. The Jag warranty is done, he said. Yeah, well, you could just buy an extended warranty is what I tell the Jag owner to do. Jaguar would happily sell you a warranty, as would many other companies. And that's what I would do as an extended extra one you pay out of pocket. But 85 grand for a Z. Yeah. Hey, everyone's got different circumstances, whatever, but I don't know why that person paid 85 grand for a Z. They are fun, but nowhere near 85 grand fun. Anyway, other comments here. I want to make sure I didn't miss any member questions. I don't think I did. I think we're good. I just, Trying Car Guy said the first couple of Transformer movies were all right. It seems like those are another thing where they kind of had more hype in the beginning and now they've kind of faded potentially. Trenton Carger said, I love a Z, but not at 85. Yeah, I guess that guy must have a lot of money to burn. There's so many sweet cars you can get for 85 grand that are sweeter than a Z, in my opinion. But Two says, how do you feel about big YouTube channels losing presenters? It was kind of sad to see Alex leave Fitment Industries. That's another case where I'm out of the loop on that. So I don't know who Alex is. I don't know who Fitment Industries is. I think I might have heard of Fitment Industries, but I'm horribly out of the loop sometimes. And, but yeah, it's interesting how there's been some shuffling around. Like for me, the one thing that I saw recently was Henry Catchpole now working for Hagerty. Hagerty's got all the money in the world right now. So, that's, I guess, understandable, go where the money's at. But it was kind of surprising to see him hop over. And I don't know if that's a temporary thing or, long term for him, but yeah, it's kind of a different world for those kinds of channels where it's, the channel's a business and it's not tied to any one person. Like a lot of us YouTube car reviewers, it's like all about our personality. And even if the channel is not named after us, like mine is, you still have others where, you expect a certain face whenever you click on a certain channel. And so that's got to be crappy to, miss that component, and certainly probably takes away some of the appeal, which is unfortunate. Garth Walker said, I asked him why he paid 85 grand. He said he wanted it long enough and sold his 2012 WRX and his 2006 350Z to get the new Z. Yeah, I guess he just must have had to have it immediately and he also didn't want to travel, because I guarantee you someone has bought a Z for MSRP, and I guarantee you there's some other people at least maybe paying 5 or 10 grand, not $25,000 over. To me, again, I really don't want to be judgmental, but if you pay 25 grand over for a Z, then you just went to your local dealer and opened your wallet. Like, you did no homework. I guarantee there's another Z for sale right now for less than 25 grand markup. I guarantee it. And if it's not advertised as that, I'm sure if you beat them up a little bit and negotiated, you'd be able to get one for under 85 grand. I'm almost certain. So either the person has no negotiating skills, no interest, doesn't care about money. I don't know, but there's no way to justify that deal, in my opinion. Anyway, Harris says, favorite music, Matt? Doesn't have to be the Bullet soundtrack. Yeah, well, you know me very well, Harris. The Bullet soundtrack's definitely a top pick. But I do love all kinds of jazz. That's one of my favorite genres. I like pop. My whole iPod on my iPhone, because I still do things the old-fashioned way, it's a whole mix of all kinds of crazy genres. So I like a bunch of like old school rap. I like, a lot of 80s stuff, rock music. I love the Beatles, of course, and all those. I mean, it's really all over the place. I love old music, 40s music, 50s music, 60s music, 70s, 80s. I mean, I'm all over the place with music. I love EDM stuff. BPM is one of my favorite channels on Sirius XM. There's a bunch of I basically like, I think it's easier to say the kind of music I don't like. So I don't like country, really. No offense. I, went to Virginia Tech for 4 years and listened to plenty of country music, but not into country music, really. And then aside from that, I don't really like anything super intense like hardcore, screamo, anything like that. But those are probably the only two genres that I can think of off the top of my head that I don't like. Everything else I'm usually pretty much into. Thanks for the fun question, Harris. Omar says, what car has got a cult following in the recent newer Fast and Furious movies like the Supra did back in its day? I'd say probably the Chargers. I think the Chargers, that's like Dom's other car now. And, that's been so heavily featured. I think a lot of those, brotherhood of muscle people that Dodge likes to label them, I think a lot of that is intertwined with the Fast and Furious fandom. And so I think you see a lot of those fans in the Fast and Furious, movies, being driven around in Chargers, Challengers, that kind of stuff. And Truck Car Guy said, I'm glad to see the Bullet holding up well. Yeah, I did the Bullet update here this past week. I'm glad so many of you enjoyed that. And yeah, thanks for the comment there. I'm glad it's holding up pretty well too, and just giving me minor dumb little issues and nothing, that's a deal breaker, thankfully. Truck Car Guy also said, since I'm dealing with car issues myself right now, oh, that sucks. Sorry to hear that. That's no fun for sure, especially if something left you stranded. I absolutely hated that in the Mini. And Quadrangle Singles, thank you so much for being a member for 1 month. He says, hey, Matt, have you watched FOS 2023? I feel like I've seen those letters around somewhere, but I don't even know what FOS means. I'm horrible. Someone can enlighten me on my ignorance here. I'd appreciate it. But I have not watched FOS 2023, whatever that is. So apologies for being out of the loop there on that, but thank you so much again for being a member there for a month now, and I hope you're enjoying the membership perks so far. And I will keep an eye out if there's any follow-up there on that, so I can properly answer that question once I know what we're talking about. Harris also said, yeah, if you go to your dealership unknown, you'll get wiped. Almost got 10 grand on add-ons on a 30 grand Accord and 5 grand under on my trade-in. Got the trade up and the add-ons to 0 and under MSRP. Well, good for you. sounds like it took a lot of work and arm twisting there, but good for you for not getting worked over by the dealers, and that's great. Yeah, good for you, man. I'm glad to hear people fighting back against the dealers. And Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, I have a Focus ST and want more stopping power. Should I just buy aftermarket brake pads and rotors, or just buy a kit?" It comes down to how much more braking power you need and want. I think it doesn't hurt to just, try pads. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I guess you could always, if you do a bigger brake kit, then you're really upgrading your braking power, and then you'd have to toss the pads. But I'd say, try things in baby steps, just in case you don't want to have some type of insane setup and then go overboard and then regret it. Unless there is no such thing as too much brakes in your opinion, then go for the full kit if you can, spend the money on it. But, I think just upgrading to a better pad could really be a nice improvement. And I actually did that on my Legacy GT way back when, because I wanted a little better braking power and just wanted to kind of improve that a little bit. And so I put some Hawk HPS pads on it, which are one of the, real popular ones. And those were great. They didn't make too much noise or really any noise at all. Honestly, that's the other thing you got to be careful about. Some of these, like the ceramic pads and stuff, just squeak like crazy because they were set up for race cars. And if they're not super hot, they just make a ton of noise. So, be careful about that. But Hawk HPS pads are great. You can do rotors as well. And that kind of, gives you a little bit of extra eye candy there behind the rim too, if you want. And I think that'd be a good stepping point, just so you're not going out and spending thousands of dollars on a kit. If, again, you don't need a ton of extra brakes, if you just want a little bit more, I think that pads and rotors are a great way to start. And you can always sell that stuff again and resell it if you decide you do want to go crazier later down the road. I'm sure the Focus ST forums, someone would scoop those up as well. Wildframe says FOS is Festival of Speed. Okay, so you're talking about the Goodwood stuff. Yeah, I watched a few little Instagram clips here and there. Haven't had the time to sit down and watch it. I just saw the highlight thing of the Ioniq 6N plowing through the hay bales there, and just a few compilations. I think Eddie X actually did an awesome compilation of all the V12, which is my favorite sound. The V12s roaring up the hills from Aston Martin, Ferrari, and all those companies, and that was a wonderful symphony. So yeah, I've seen a few little snippets, but I haven't been able to sit down and actually watch, any of the other videos out there as far as all the hill climb stuff or the live stream or anything like that. Unfortunately, that'd be really fun. And I was kind of jealous because a lot of my other YouTuber buddies were at Goodwood. I don't know. I think maybe Hyundai invited a bunch of them. I did not get an invite to that, but man, I'd love to go to Goodwood someday. That would be amazing. And that'd be so much fun. Harris also, thank you so much for being a member for 4 months. He said, "These make my Sundays, by the way. I sit and do a lot of computer work, so this is in the background and it's perfect." I'm so happy that it's giving you some good entertainment there on a Sunday. And thanks so much for joining in, for being a member, and the support, not only just with the membership, but Harris, I know I've been seeing your comments for forever. I feel like ever since I even started doing car reviews. So thank you so much for all the support all these years. It really means a lot. All right, so let me get back to the other member questions I don't want to miss out on here. So he says, yeah, got to fight the car dealership fight. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Goth Parker says he went out of state. They asked 90. He got them down to 85. I told him nice car, but that's crazy. It's fully loaded, has a limited slip diff, but yeah, still a Nissan Z. I don't know. Maybe that's literally the best deal out there. That would be insane if that's the case, but I have such a hard time believing no dealers willing to do less than 25 under on those. And Jasmo says, "Are you following DeLorean? It's supposed to come out in a year or two. Looks awesome, and of course very expensive. I hope they send you one to review." So there's a couple little DeLorean things, so it's kind of confusing. So the actual DeLorean brand doesn't have anything to do with the DeLorean family anymore. That they're doing all those new electric things we just saw at Pebble Beach last year. Maybe we'll see some new stuff here in a few weeks, if they're going to do some more then. But there's that, and then there's also the daughter of John DeLorean, who's doing her own car that I talked about in the weekly updates on maybe 6 or 9 months ago, and that looks pretty sweet as well. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. Even the regular DeLorean thing seems like it's kind of a far-fetched thing as far as whether they actually get the financing and actually make this a reality. And then with this other thing that DeLorean's daughter is doing, I don't know how that's going to come to fruition. If it does, they all seem very out there. And then if they do come to production, they're going to be very low volume. So as far as getting one to review, they will definitely not send me one. I'm almost certain, because the only companies that send press vehicles or even do media launches are large companies that have be like, I don't even access like a Rivian, and Rivion's like a pretty well established thing now, and I can't even get one of those. Lucid, I just had the opportunity to do one of those a few months back, and I turned it down because I just feel like on this channel, a six-figure EV is just going to do terribly, like my e-tron GT RS video did from the Audi, last year. So I just turned that down. It'd be cool to do, but again, I'm not going to waste my time on a car that no one's going to watch. So I turned that down. But so as far as like, those are the smallest new companies that have actually been in the press fleet, and they're pretty large companies now. DeLorean, yeah, they'll never probably have a press fleet, if they even make those things a reality. But I wish them all the best, though. It's going to be awesome if they too actually bring this to production. And Harris, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, of course, Matt, hard, genuine work never goes unnoticed. Too many people changing up, but you're staying true is the best. Blessings to you and your family. Thank you so much, Harris. I appreciate that in the super chat as well. And yeah, it means a lot. Hopefully your family's doing well, and hopefully that Accord treats you well too for a good long while. It's a great pickup. Those Accord hybrids are awesome. All right, other member questions here. I'm always losing my place. Two says, have you ever played Top Gear while reviewing a car with while the cameras are off? It's the fastest Mustang in the world. Yeah, it's that's kind of what inspired me to do the car reviews in the first place, was all the Top Gear videos we all kind of grew up watching, and I still. It would just be awesome someday to do those kind of like adventure things like they do. That's part of, the whole like dream, like pipe dream thing, is not only just getting to the point where like I have an editor and videographer and I just show up and drive like those guys, but also like being able to hire a crew to like document awesome adventures and, just things like that would be awesome. And actually, like a funny little Top Gear related thing, I was talking to one of my good friends just the other day, who's not on YouTube or anything, but he's doing a cross country road trip just for work, and he has a Honda Ridgeline. He has a tire on like a basket on his roof, and he had to go through a parking garage, and he had like an inch clearance, but it was like too close. He was nervous, so he had to take down the tire off the roof while he was trying to get into this parking garage, and there was like people behind him, and like they're waiting for him, and he has to take it down. It's this whole like embarrassing thing. And I told him I could already imagine like just the cutaway shots, like the Top Gear shots of like people like blowing their horns and shaking their heads, and he's like apologizing, saying like sorry everyone, as he's like holding up traffic. Just I'd love to like recreate some of those types of like fun scenes on some kind of series on my own someday. That'd be amazing. But yeah, those shows are so good. I don't know if you guys have caught up on all the Grand Tours, but the new Eurocrash one was so good. Really reminded me of the classic Top Gear stuff in a lot of ways, and some of the things they got themselves into. Those three are still, they're just the best. Especially James May. I've even just been watching, I don't know if you guys watch cooking shows, but he has a show called Oh Cook on Amazon Prime, and I've been watching those, me and Beth, before we go to bed every night, and they're so good. I mean, I'll literally watch James May do anything. He's just, I don't know why, his sense of humor like is always awesome to me, but watching him cook is really satisfying, and just a great little like 30-minute show just put on before bed. And anyway, those guys are all awesome. So it'd be fun to do some of the Top Gear stuff someday. And let me see here. So Trent Carga said, my Magnum has died on me twice in the past couple of weeks. Oh, that's the worst. Hopefully you can figure out what it is, and so it doesn't happen again, but that is no fun. And Omar says, do you think we will see a new color option for the Rally Mustang Mach-E? A green color would look good on that trim. Definitely. We'll see, because I don't know. I didn't talk about this in the weekly update because I'm not sure what the deal is, because they didn't give a lot of details on that Mach-E Rally, but it looks like it has new headlights, which makes me think that it's going to roll out alongside like a refresh for the Mach-E that maybe just gets new headlights and slightly different bumpers or something. So if they do that, there could be some more new colors. We did get one new color from the 2023 model year. I think it was the Vapor Blue color or something similar. It's like a dark bluish kind of color. But yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing they'll probably have to do some fun colors. One person on the Mach-E forums that's an insider said that like now that the news is out there, they're like, I saw it in Cyber Orange a few months back and it was pretty awesome looking in Cyber Orange. So at least that color will stick around. And I'm sure there'll be some carryover colors, but as far as some of the other colors, they may have some new ones. I would hope so, but they've also been kind of meh when it comes to adding new colors for the Mach-E, in my opinion, over the past few years. So they may just stick to the same colors too. Who knows? Rafi says, happy Matt, happy car wash Sunday again. That's awesome. Glad to see you're enjoying another car wash there. And thanks for joining in, Rafi. And Tom says, thanks, Yoshi. I'm a newbie to brakes, so your advice is greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, Yoshi, for the advice there. And he says, yeah, upgrade the pads and rotors as well. That's awesome. So yeah, thanks so much. And Garth Walker says, speaking of your 5-year Mustang update, I did watch it. I also have a digital dash in my 17 Continental. And last year, the dash display also went black for literally a second, came right back on. Yeah, it's weird. I think someone in a comment on that video said that there's like a pinched wiring harness. And if it just pinches just the right way, it can cause that to happen for a split second, which sounds about right for, yeah, I mean, because it's always a super quick thing. It just seems like it's a minor little electrical short for a split second or something, and then it's back. So hopefully the displays themselves are still solid and just that wiring's maybe not 100%, but yeah. And Harris says the story with your friends Ridgeline is so top gear. Yeah, it'd be so fun to film that kind of stuff, those types of things. Like, unless you have a crew like always rolling, you're going to miss that kind of stuff on a road trip, if you happen to do that stuff. And Nathaniel says, testing to test if I can text as a member now. That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for becoming a member, Nathaniel. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to answering some more of your questions if you have any. Wild Frame says, today I was wondering how Hagerty has so much money for these YouTube productions. They're only YouTube based. So Hagerty is an insurance company here in the States. I know you're in Bulgaria, so maybe they're not in Bulgaria, but they're an enormous insurance company. They do classic car stuff primarily, but they've branched out to other just basically enthusiast vehicles. They'll insure, I think, basically anything, but they really have a heavy hand in the enthusiast market. And they typically are some of the best rates as well, as far as classic car insurance and stuff, just from what I've heard. But so they're an insurance company. So that's why they have insane amounts of money. And I'm not sure if I'm at liberty. I know why they've been doing all the YouTube stuff with huge budgets. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say, because I'm not sure how public that info is. So not to be a tease, but Hagerty has a good reason for dumping tons of money into YouTube. I can just say that. And they don't really, I don't think they really care about YouTube that much, but it just was convenient the way it worked out for them that they were able to do this awesome YouTube channel just as like a fun side thing for them, basically, because they're just this enormous company. So I'll just leave it at that. But yes, that is how they have an insane amount of money, like any other insurance company. It's just, it's really easy when you're just basically forcing people by law here in the States to pay in case something ever happens to their car. And when you're talking about, classic cars and stuff where things very rarely happen, because they're not driven very much, it's an easy way to rake in a large amount of money there. But at least, again, they are giving back with pretty good rates from what I've heard, and an awesome YouTube channel. So at least there's some good there, more than the average insurance company, really. And Luke, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I'm debating between an Accord hybrid and the new Prius. Well, that'll really come down to how much space you want is really the bottom line, I think, for those two. They're going to feel similarly punchy. I'd say the Prius might feel a tiny bit punchier, actually, even though it has less power, just because it's a little smaller and lighter. And it's just tuned to be, I think, a little bit quicker with like throttle response and stuff. I think, yeah, it's going to come down to how large you are as well from a height standpoint, because the Prius doesn't have a ton of headroom. It has a lower seating position now, but they really cut that roof down and has that insane rake like you saw in my review. I talked about how crazy it is. So it's really going to be a space thing, as far as, the Accord's got a way bigger trunk. You have the hatch in the Prius, but it's really shallow. So it's not, practicality is not the new Prius's strong suit. The back seat's decent if you're not super tall up front, but I think if you want something with a good amount of space, the Accord hybrid is definitely the better way to go. Let me see here. So other questions. Troy Cargo said, Luke, I'd say it would come down to, what you intend to use the vehicle for. Totally. Also, one important thing, though, is you can get the Prius with all-wheel drive. I don't know where you live, but if you could appreciate all-wheel drive, Prius has that. Accord does not. Obviously, you can get the CR-V with the all-wheel drive if you want the Honda hybrid system with the all-wheel drive there. But otherwise, Prius might be a good thing if you want to stick to a sedan. And Anna says, glad to finally catch you live again. Thanks for joining in. And Challenger Chris says, my 67 Firebird is insured through Hagerty. Okay, well, hopefully you didn't have any experience with them. Hopefully it's just been all uneventful for your time with Hagerty Bear, but That's awesome. And yeah, I've heard that they've been pretty good as far as rates and taking care of people and stuff. And Harris says, Luke, I cross shop both. I drive 600 miles a week and get 52 mpg, 600 miles using only 11 gallons of gas. You can't beat. Plus, better driving dynamics, in my opinion. Yeah, it'll come down to what kind of dynamics you're looking for. Accord's going to be much better for comfort because it's a lot smoother. It's bigger. It's set up to be softer versus Prius is, again, just a little tighter sprung. Still great riding, in my opinion. Still great handling. It's just you have skinnier tires on the Prius, so you run out of grip a little sooner in the Prius. They're 195s versus, I believe, 225s on the Accord. Harris can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 225s on the Accord. So, you have some differences there as well. The refinements can be much better in the Accord, way more sound deadening. You have the big screen in the Accord. Well, actually, no, I take that back. They're both 12-inch screens between the Prius and the Accord. But, yeah, I'd say it's definitely a more premium experience as far as, the interior with more padding in the Accord. So there's pros and cons to both as far as what your preferences are. But 52 mpg is really solid there for the Accord, and that's pretty impressive. Brianna's asking if hybrids get a tax break, and Harris says cross-country road trips, EVs way better than an EV plug-in. Yeah, it's going to come down to what your usage case is there. But I mean, obviously the plug-in, you exhaust your range in the first, half an hour of driving, and then you're done. So yeah, regular hybrid's probably the way to go if you're doing all highway stuff. Rafi says a sunroof. As far as I'm guessing the Prius versus Accord, I think they both offer a sunroof. You get the glass roof that's bigger in the Prius versus the regular. I think it's only a regular sunroof in the Accord, but anyway, yeah, both great choices. Can't really go wrong with either one, I think, but one will certainly suit you better depending on what your preferences are. Brianna, hybrids don't get a tax break, at least for the regular ones. The plug-in hybrids do in many states. And let me see. So other questions here. So why turn down a Lucid, man? That's an awesome car. I would have watched that video. It would have been fun. I mean, trust me, I would never, if it was me doing this for my own personal gratification, of course, I'm not going to turn down a 6-figure, amazing, fast, luxury car, but that's just one of those tough decisions you got to make whenever the channel is my entire business, my entire living. I got to be wise with my time. And unfortunately, it's just time and time again proven that anything that's super expensive, that usually kills views in general, but super expensive and EVs is like a double whammy for no one wants to watch. I mean, if you want to see me do a 6-figure car review on something really fast, like I said, the Audi RS e-tron GT was awesome. It's got about, I think, 6,000 views on YouTube. Complete waste of time. I mean, again, it was a ton of fun. I'm very thankful I got to drive it, and I don't regret doing it for my own personal fun, but it was a complete waste of time from a business standpoint. The amount of time it takes me to film, edit, and me taking that car instead of another car that could have gotten more views and made more money. It was just a bad choice even doing that one. That one, I thought maybe, something like that would be fast enough that, it'd have a good reaction. People would tune in and watch, and it just turned out that people just didn't watch it. So, it's same thing, even Hummer EV, super exciting, super hyped up, this insane thing that has 4-wheel steering and 3 seconds 0 to 60s. I had an insane reaction driving that thing. No one cares. I think it's got 5,000 views on the Hummer EV. So that one was a little late to the game as well, but still, I thought that would do really well. So again, the past year or two has been a learning experience for me where it's just EVs are really an uphill battle on this channel, and it's fine. I understand. But it just means that if I'm going to review an EV, it's got to be one of the ones that sells a ton, so I can at least get some non-subscribers to watch that are just researching cars. But as far as subscribers here on the channel, it seems like very few of you watch those videos, and that's okay. I'm here to make videos you guys want to watch, but that's the difference. I'm here to make videos you guys want to watch, not to make videos that I want to make necessarily. I mean, hopefully those things overlap, but they don't always. And so that's when I got to make those tough decisions of okay, I'm not doing this car I desperately want to drive because I need to review a Crosstrek instead, because that's going to get more views. That's just the sad reality, is way more people on this channel would rather watch me review a Crosstrek or an Impreza, way more. My Impreza review has 40,000 views on the new Impreza RS, 182 horsepower, little hatchback, 40,000 views, 1,000 horsepower Hummer, 5,000 views. So it's, you know, to me, that makes it very clear why I can't do Lucids and stuff like that. And even if I get an opportunity to review a Rivian, I won't take it either. I'm not going to do that one either. Whoops, looks like the chat got disconnected. Hopefully you guys are still with me here. I don't know how long it was disconnected for, but anyway, I'm just ranting about how I can't review EVs that often. Anyway, other questions here. I'm going to get caught up on the member questions. So let me see here. So Truck and Cargo said, how's the Maki doing? Maki's doing well. So we'll be doing an update video here in the next few weeks. Technically, I think next week is the 1-year anniversary of us buying it, or maybe it's 2 weeks from now. But I'm going to push that back a little bit because I have some exciting stuff coming. And members, stay tuned for another revised schedule because I had another exciting addition that I will be posting and bumping all the other less exciting stuff back. So stay tuned. I'll be posting the new member schedule on Tuesday. But yes, so Maki update is coming, but that'll be coming after all the other exciting stuff. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting those 5 memberships. I really appreciate it, and happy to see everyone snatching those up. I really appreciate the generosity, Kyle. It really means a lot. Thank you so much. All right, so other questions here. Wildframe says, full EVs are still pretty niche segment. Hybrids and plugins, yes, but EVs, I cannot mention one mass-selling EV worldwide. Yeah, and I do want to do more Tesla reviews because that is kind of a blind spot that I have in a way, and I'm hoping to maybe at least do a Model Y because that's, again, selling in huge numbers. It's really cheap, has the appeal. You know, there's those types of things I definitely want to do. And Ace of Spades says, have you historically preferred the Outback or Forester that you've reviewed? So the Outbacks that I've driven, all of them have been the turbo, and I love the fact they offer the Outback with a turbo, but it's just not tuned well with that CVT. And the Foresters that I've had obviously are not turbo, and the CVT tuning is much better. So I've actually enjoyed driving the non-turbo Forester compared to the turbo Outbacks, the only ones I've driven with this new generation. So as far as packaging goes, like personally, I'd probably rather drive an Outback over a Forester because it's just a little cooler looking and feeling. I kind of like this lifted wagon versus a full blown SUV with a Forester. But the Forester was fine too. I did the Wilderness last year. Totally a fine, nice thing. I don't think it's the best in the segment, especially currently. It's very dated compared to the brand new, fresh CRV. The still very competitive RAV4, the brand new Sportage, and the Tucson. I mean, Forester's way down there as far as impressiveness goes, whereas the Outback kind of has a niche to itself where it doesn't really have to compete very much and has aged better as a result. I am not in love with either of them, if I'm honest, but I'd say between the two, I like the Outback better. So hopefully that answers your question. Goth Rocker says, Matt, the e-tron GT was a good video. I learned a lot watching it, but you're correct. EVs are not realistic purchases for 95% of your audience. Yep. And that's the reality I have to, work with and, just go with the stuff that I know is going to be a home run, at least as best as I can predict. And, Kyle also added on, have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for the gift, Kyle. I really appreciate it once again. Mike says, Matt, do you think the Saudis will keep Lucid alive or let the company die off? I think they want to keep it alive. I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, maybe they could sink it to, help the oil industry or something. I don't know. But I think Saudis, if they invested in something, they want to keep it alive. I don't think they're, undermining anything. I think they want to have them do well. And, now we're seeing that Lucid's partnering up with Aston, and the Saudis also have a lot of investments in Aston as well, which is great. And I'm happy to see them propping up these awesome companies and keeping them going. So, I think they'll hopefully help Lucid to do well for a long time. And I think that new SUV for Lucid is going to do huge numbers for them and really, help their business too. And Rafi says, speaking of the Subaru CVTs, have you driven the WX Auto? Not that I would buy one. I haven't. I've been begging for one. And it's the whole story with the CVT WX has been so weird from a press launch standpoint, because when I was on the media launch for the manual one, they said the CVT is not ready yet. It'll be coming a few months after the manuals. Okay, cool. And this was December of 2021. Yeah, whenever that happened, or November, end of November 2021. So I'm like, okay, cool. Spring of 2022, probably, have a CVT WX drive. And there wasn't one. It wasn't like I just didn't get invited. Like there wasn't one. And then, I'm like, okay, well, they'll probably just put them in the press fleet. I'll wait around. none of them really in the press fleet. And then just this year, I've been starting to see some WRX GTs floating around the press fleet. I saw one on my local Subaru dealer's lot for an insane like 46,000 or something disgusting like that. But the GTs are starting to go out in the press fleets a little bit. And I saw some other people that seem to be in my region or close to my region are getting them. My press fleet person for Subaru claims they don't have it yet. We will see, you know, if they get it or what the deal is with that. But I'm hoping to review a WRX GT at some point here this fall, because it seems like the people that have reviewed it have said it's better than you would expect. I'm willing to approach it with an open mind. Subaru thinks it's the greatest thing ever. I'll give it a try and see, hopefully someday if I get the chance. You know, obviously I'll almost certainly still prefer the manual, but you know, maybe it'll be decent. We'll have to see. But I've not tested it, unfortunately. And Harris says he's logging off. Have a blessed week, everyone. Thanks for joining us, Harris. I appreciate it. Luco, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I wish they made the Civic hatchback with a hybrid. I'd probably pick that over the Prius or Accord. Civic hatchback hybrid is coming next year. It's in Europe, and they said that they're doing it. They already confirmed that officially from Honda. And I don't think they gave a specific timeline, but I'm pretty sure the consensus is next year. Because again, it's currently for sale in Europe. So it's out there. They're building them. It's a done thing. So just, I guess, lining up the logistics to get them produced over here for whatever reason, you know, it's taking a little longer, but that is coming. So if you're not in a hurry and you really do want that, then just wait it out, because that's going to happen. Mike says maybe even later this year. That could be too. I haven't heard anything about that in probably at least 6 months, but hopefully that does come, you know, sooner rather than later. Because I think, you know, it's crazy how Toyota basically has no competition right now in that whole segment, and the Civic will be a great competitor. So we'll see when that comes, but it is coming. And yeah, Wild Frame says they have it there in Europe and it's good. 7 seconds 0 to 60, but CVT, but it's good. Yeah, I mean, the CVTs that Honda has in the regular Civics right now are great too. I think it's actually one of my favorite CVTs. I don't love any CVT still really, but as far as CVTs go, I'd say that's one of the better ones out there. Yeah, so it should be, and I think with the Civic, it might actually be the direct drive kind of thing, like you see with the Accord and stuff, where it's kind of referred to as a CVT, but it's kind of different than a regular normal CVT as we know it. So it's, yeah, I think they'd be a great driving little car. I'm excited for them, and hopefully testing one at some point, maybe next year, would be great. Two says the GR Previa is finally dropping. Is that the news? Is Mr. Toyota finally letting you unveil the car? Are you finally going to come out as a Toyota shell? Yeah. GR Previa, that would be a sweet thing. And I don't know. I'm not a great public presenter, surprisingly, because it's a whole lot easier, in my opinion, whenever you're, you know, filming a video and you can edit it and edit out all your mistakes. But even in these live streams, I kind of just feel like I'm hanging out with, you know, friends, just talking cars. So this is a lot lower pressure than like if I actually had to present something. I know you're just joking around too, but public speaking was not my forte. I hated giving presentations in high school and college, but yeah, maybe I'd try it someday for a car company. I don't know if they paid me enough, but unfortunately no car company pays me with following up with your last thing. Yeah, it'd be nice to do a partnership with a car company, as long as it was clearly labeled as like, hey, this is a biased like promotion of something, or being a commercial or something where it's clearly understood this is me getting paid to say something. But yeah, I've never been paid by a car company for anything, and probably will keep it that way again, unless there is some kind of commercial opportunity or something like that. But as far as the YouTube reviews go, always 100% unpaid for. You know, and as many of you know, they provide the press vehicles with a free tank of gas in them, and you know, they provide that for free, and the press trips and all that are all expenses covered. They provide that opportunity, but they don't pay us directly, you know. But that's the way that works in that whole world. Because if it didn't work that way, if I had to pay for delivery for press vehicles, or I had to pay to fly to all these events, this channel would lose money, and I would have never been able to do this full time or even part time, because it would have just been actually losing money. So that's the only way that's possible, is with the car companies covering the cost for those things. But yeah, Rafiq can't believe the Auto WRX for 46 grand. Yeah, those GTs, I guess they're selling to the same people that are paying 85 grand for a regular Z. I don't know. I don't know how they're selling them, but Truck Car Guy says, Luke, if you can, I would try to test drive both cars, and see which fits your needs better. Totally agree. That's always the best thing to do, is drive them. And because even with these reviews, I try and give you as much information as I can, but at the end of the day, there's still some things where, it just might not feel good to you for whatever reason. Everyone has different preferences, different things they expect, different things they're used to, so always good to test drive for sure. And he also said he had an EG for first car. Yeah, those old Civics are fantastic. Saul says, hi, Matt, what are your thoughts about the Lexus IS or RC? Do either of those come close to the driving experience of the GR86? I want the manual, but I also want a little more luxury. They're not really the same kind of experience in any way. I mean, yes, the rear wheel drive and, RC is, I guess you could say RCF is similar to GR86 as far as, I could see maybe some similarities with the suspension tuning where they have similar tolerances as far as, like, obviously the RC has a lot more grip with the wider tires and all that, but they're very predictable with the way they both break away at the limit and, how you can slide them. It's just the limits are higher, but, as far as once you get to that limit in the RC, it is kind of, friendlier like the GR86 is. So I guess you could say that. But aside from that, it's a real different thing. They're way heavier. And they're also, like, the steering's slower. You're sitting higher, even in the RC. It's just, the 86 is just such a rare, like, pure sports car driving experience. So if you want a little more luxury in that segment, there's been the rumors about a Lexus version of the GR86. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I think someone in the comments here actually that might have been on the inside said something like it's not happening anymore, and they gave a reason. I think they said it was something about packaging that just didn't work out very well. But trying to think of other stuff. Really, if you want something that's a little more luxurious, you could go for, like, Supra, maybe, I'd say, is a little closer because it's a lower seating position than the RC, but it's BMW, as far as the switchgear and, they're in refinement and being a little heavier and all that. So maybe that could be something to look into for you if you want a little more luxury than the GR86. Other than that, I would say, M2 could kind of give you maybe the best of both worlds. You have the manual, you have also the extra luxury stuff. That could kind of maybe fit if you are open to brands outside of Toyota and Lexus. And yeah, that's probably going to be my best recommendation as far as that whole segment goes. And if you don't even, like, if the new M2 is a little pricey, even the past gen M2, if you're not scared of a used European car, that really actually reminded me of, like, a bigger 86 in a lot of ways. It's having a playful back end, having good power, but not bonkers amounts of power, and just being a really fun little, car. Now, you sit up higher in the old M2 even as well compared to the 86, but it's still just a fun, playful rear wheel drive little thing, a little lighter than the RC, but again, still a little bit more luxury. So maybe that helps you a little bit, hopefully. But let me know if you have any follow-up questions, so I'll be more than happy to help narrow it down for you there. And Challenger Chris says they are repoing them as fast as they're selling them. And I'm not sure which car you're referring to there. Maybe the WX. Yeah. The repo rates are crazy right now, though. It's kind of it's not going to be good if it continues. We'll see how the car market does, but I think that's going to be the domino that starts the fall of the car market potentially. Omar says, not a car related question, but growing up, did you collect Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh cards? If so, will you pass it on to your daughter? So I did have a bunch of Pokemon cards. I was never into Yu-Gi-Oh, but I loved Pokemon back in the day and played all the Game Boy Color games and all that. But I never saved any of them. I sold a bunch of them back whenever that was still in its height, and I don't know if I wanted money for video games or what it was, but I sold them after I kind of got over it in my, like mid-teen years. But so unfortunately I don't have any of my old Pokemon cards, but that was so fun. And it was a few years back, but I had a friend gift me a custom Game Boy Color that he had like repainted for me, and it was really cool. And so I played through Pokemon Yellow, which is still one of my favorite ones, that and Silver/Gold, but Pokemon Yellow I love. So I actually played through it. It's a funny story. So this was probably almost 5 years ago now, but I was playing through it and having a blast. And I was like, maybe like 10% away from beating the game. And then I did the one like catastrophic mistake you can make with those where the batteries were almost about to die, but I didn't know because you never had a battery meter on this. You didn't know when the batteries are going to die in a Game Boy Color. And so you had to like kind of judge based on how bright the little red light was whenever you would save the game. And so anyway, I was like done playing for the night and I went to hit save and it was mid save and the batteries died, which if you know anything about those means it wiped the memory and I lost all of my progress. And I was so deflated when that happened. I was like, I'm done for a long time. So I'll go back and beat it again probably someday whenever I have free time in the mythical future. But yeah, it's so close to beating it a few years ago again. I've beaten it multiple times, but that was such a bummer to lose all my progress there. But I do love Pokemon. It's great. And Hugo says, hey, Matt, just tuned in. Sorry for being late. I'm always going to ask this, but what's going on with Ram not coming up with a Dakota and Journey? Did Dodge forget how popular crossover and midsize trucks are? I mean, Dakota, that's what the new Rampage is probably going to end up being. I don't know if it'll be compact or midsize as far as trucks go, but, it's already, I believe, even on sale, or at least pre-orders have opened up down in Brazil where it's been launched. And then I think they haven't confirmed it yet for the US side, but it's pretty much a done deal. It's going to end up, being sold here in the States. And so we will see when the Rampage comes, but I would assume it's coming in the next few months as far as at least the reveal. And that will kind of be, I'm guessing they're like Dakota, replacement. It's more of a Maverick and, a Santa Cruz competitor, but that's, I think, what they're going to say as far as their smaller truck. Finally, the Journey, there was rumors the Journey wasn't going to come back, but they were going to do something new to fill that slot. And I talked about it in a weekly update many months ago. So far long ago, I don't even remember exactly what the plan was, but there is some new affordable crossover coming to slot above the Hornet, I believe, as far as size goes, but still be pretty low cost. But I don't remember what they were going to call it. But anyway, they have a bunch of stuff coming with. They're also, at least according to the dealer conferences and stuff, the Durango is going to go full size and actually compete with the Tahoe and the Expedition. And then the Stealth is the rumored name for a new like unibody through a crossover to come supposedly from Dodge. So there's a lot of new things coming down the road. We will see if they do more trucks from Ram, but as of right now, it seems like the Rampage is probably the next thing most likely coming. And Goth says Lexus is going to have their own version, but the boxer engine was not refined enough for Lexus standards. Okay, that was the reason. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I said that is a fact. They had sheet metal model done. Crazy. Yeah, so and I can see that the boxer engine is not very refined, so I can understand that. But yeah, crazy they killed it. And Hugo says Dragon Ball Z all day. I never ended that one either. I don't know if that was, I don't know why I didn't. But yeah, for me, it was like Pokemon was the only thing. Trent Garga said they're also supposed to work on a mid-size Ram pickup. Yeah, and there was spied, I thought, like some type of actual, like body on frame, smaller Ram coming, but there was talks of that only being electric if it did come. So who knows? We'll see. And Wild Frames says, sorry for similar question, but I also plan to buy a fun car, but same problem like the ISRC GR86 question. Can we assume that 2 series like 230i, 2.0T, 248 horsepower is a good middle ground, 4 seats and it's lighter? I've never driven the 230i, but I would really like to because I agree with you. I think it's a great potential. And even the was the M240 now is the one, yeah, that's sliding above that, which is you can also get with all-wheel drive and it could be great. The only thing here in the States, the 230 isn't offered with a manual. Maybe in Bulgaria, where you're from, Wild Frames, maybe they offer it there with a manual. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, as long as you're okay with automatic, yeah, the 230i would be a great little car from what I've seen because it's 248 horsepower, but I believe that still does like the 295 pound-feet of torque. So, I mean, it's going to be a real torquey, punchy motor. And that 2-liter motor is a ton of fun. I mean, it's great. And, like even the Supra 2.0T has that same motor. Really a strong, very underrated motor in that car. And the Supra 2.0, I know they're still kind of pricey for what they are, but they are a real good value. And that's another one too. If you're, previously in talking about the RC and all that from Saul, if you don't want to go all the way up to a 3.0 Supra, there are some deals I think to be had on 2.0 Supras because no one wants them. Even my brother-in-law, he just told me they have a 2.0 Supra in their showroom. He works at a Toyota dealer and they can't get rid of it. So I think it's a really underappreciated car. The 2.0 Supra is still so much fun, still very tail happy, still has great sounds, and it's still just a cool car that I'm glad they offered, even though it seems like it was a complete waste of time for them because it seems like no one's buying them. But I think Supra 2.0s will get an appreciation someday. I think they're being slept on currently, and I think people will come around to the Supra 2.0 someday, maybe after the Supra's gone and it's gone electric or something crazy. But yeah, I think they're great. And Luke, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I used to love playing Need for Speed Carbon and using the WX in the Canyon Duel and out handling the boss cars. Yeah, Carbon was a great one. I really loved that one. That was, of course, right around Tokyo Drift days. So it was kind of fun how the Need for Speed games always kind of played off the Fast and Furious movies of that year. Yeah, Carbon was great. I used to love all those old Need for Speed games. So much fun. I'd love to play through them all again someday. And thank you so much for the super chat there, Luke. So let me see. So yeah, that's as far as wad frames. I think 230 would be great. And he says, yeah, they have the manual. That's awesome. They offer the manual there. That's great. Two says, can we eventually get a live stream where you just play Pokemon? I don't know. I feel like there'd be very few people that would be interested in that on this live stream. If that's incorrect, let me know in the comments. I'm not opposed, but I don't know. I can see the appeal of the gaming live streams, but I just kind of wonder. Well, I don't even know if that's possible to do with a Game Boy Color game, unless I use like an emulator on my computer to like do a live stream of it. Unless I'm like actually like, hey, look what I'm doing. But it might be kind of hard to do, but that'd be fun to play some Pokemon for sure. Hugo says, I went to see the GMC Canyon in person. It took my breath away. They're really cool. I actually just saw my first one on the road this past week as well. And they're really good looking trucks. They did a great job. I think it looks a lot better than the Colorado does. Not that the Colorado is bad, but Canyon definitely looks better. Wild Frame says, yeah, the Supra has that same engine. Yeah, which is what I love about it. It's a great engine, that B48 motor. Truck Car Guy says, to be honest, the Journey annoys me since it's partially because they wanted to build the Journey and that's what killed off the Magnum. Yeah, that's understandable there. Yeah, the Journey was, I don't know, they just seemed kind of underwhelming, but I think it was, a car that was really great for a lot of people. It was affordable. It had a, spare jump seat kind of third row thing for people who needed that in a pinch. But it was like really cheap, especially those last few years. They were insanely cheap. So it was really great to see, a car that was offered, for people that, couldn't afford something super nice. It was a great option. Trunk Car Guy says NFS Carbon. Heck yeah, that was a great one. Yeah, for sure. Hugo says you should do a live feed with Beth. We have discussed potentially Beth coming on for a live stream in the future. It would just have to be a shorter one, or we'd have to do it like at night sometime, because I do these whenever our daughter's napping. And during that time, Beth's always like eating her lunch and, doing all of her things she needs to do while the baby's sleeping. So it's a little tough for her to do it during this time. But if we do a different time live stream, that is something it's a potential we could do down the road. Because I know we've had some fun videos in the past, like way back when, like maybe 2015, 2016, we did like a wife tag Q&A video, which was fun. We were drinking while we were doing that one and everything. It was a pretty funny video. If you want to kill a few minutes and go back and watch that if you haven't. It was a long time ago. I think if you just tag in or type in wife tag Q&A, I think that comes up, and it was kind of a fun thing to do, like a Q&A on camera there. Mike says, Matt, do you think the Ioniq 5N is worth the price delta over both the EV6 GT and the Model Y Performance? For me, it seems like a tough sell, assuming it'll be $70,000 and no tax credit as of now. Well, if the Model Y Performance continues to be whatever they are, $48,000 or something, I mean, it's a struggle with anything. I mean, I talked about that in my EV6 GT review. I talked about that, a bunch of times now, where, if you're wanting an electric car, the best value right now is a Tesla. And I'm not a Tesla fanboy by any means, quite the opposite kind of, but I got to give them credit where it's due. I mean, if you're looking for a value, Model Y Performance is hands down the only choice. If you're going, in that segment and you want the cheapest thing with the best performance, it's game over with that, especially with the tax credits and stuff. So, but yeah, if we are assuming $70,000 for the Ioniq 5N and the EV6 GTs sitting around on dealer lots and getting discounts and all that, Yeah, I mean, and I think this is Hyundai knows this stuff, so they're also gonna have to be very, sensitive with the pricing of the Ioniq 5N, and hopefully, it'll won't carry much of a premium over the EV6 GT. And if that's the case, then I could see it having a case for itself if it's 2 or 3 grand more, but you get all the cool extra stuff that the EV6 GT doesn't have. You get the extra power. There they could carve out. I mean, I don't know how much they want to undermine the Kia, but they could carve out a niche for themselves there. But I think there's also the EV6 GT is kind of a sleeper. It doesn't really have the aggressive styling I think a lot of people that are buying something like that want. And there's really not been much marketing for the Kia either. And the marketing that is out there is just like people being like, wow, it gets terrible range. And, the fact that it's fun. I mean, I loved it. And I think it's a great value, especially if you can get it for I think someone said 10 grand off. They saw their dealer advertise it for. That is a real solid buy in my opinion. But, so I don't know. We will have to see final pricing before we judge, but it could be a tough sell. Maybe Hyundai doesn't care. Maybe it'll turn out that it'll end up being, some type of limited production thing, and they'll do, 1,000 of them a year, and it'll be as rare as a GR Corolla or something. I don't know. We'll have to see how they play that from a production standpoint and from every standpoint. So maybe they won't need to have it be a good value, but if they do need it to be a good value, then hopefully, they can, market it as just being insanely fast and not justifying it over the other stuff. Cause I mean, it will be faster than a Model Y performance and stuff. So for people who must have that one up, the Hyundai will do that. So, we'll see. Anyway, Sue says, we can still chat about cars instead of the Pokemon thing. And Challenger Chris says, Beth can complain about your driving. Yeah, she could. Honestly, though, she doesn't actually mind my driving. She never really gives me a hard time for it. So either she's just being really nice or she actually doesn't have a problem with it, but I don't think she has a problem with it. We'll see. That could be a fun question for the live stream though, for if we ever do one together. Hugo says you should also do a live feed with one of your fans, like a contest, and see who wins. That could be a fun idea. Yeah, if I do like a live stream out in public somewhere, maybe like during a meetup or something, we can do like a big live together. That could be fun too. It just usually whenever I'm hanging with fans, as you know, Hugo, whenever I always just want to like talk to people and kind of just get to know them and stuff. And so juggling that with trying to be responsive to questions, which I know is kind of rare. I know a lot of these YouTubers that do these live streams, they like completely ignore super chats and completely ignore everyone and just kind of like blab for 30 minutes and then sign off. But I actually like interacting with you guys on here. So I think whenever I do live streams, I usually want to be staring at the comments and making sure that I'm answering as much as I possibly can. Yeah, but it'd be fun to do something with a fan someday. Trent Cargill says I'd totally be down to watch a gaming live stream. Well, I appreciate that. Rafi says personally, I think the Ioniq 5 looks way better than the EV6. Yeah, I think that the styling is really what's going to sell it for a lot of people for sure. He says, Two Chang says Matt and Beth, Gran Turismo Forza playing would be fun. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love to play both. I'm excited for the new Forza this fall. I probably won't buy it because I have no free time to play it, but I'm excited that a new one is coming, and maybe someday I will be able to try it out. I really would love to try Gran Turismo too. I spent so many hundreds of hours playing Gran Turismo as a kid. I started with Gran Turismo 1 over at a friend's house, then I bought Gran Turismo 2, played all through that for years, and then 3, 4, 5. I think 5 was where I ended, and then after 5 is when I got busy with life and never played 6 or 7, I don't think. But yeah, it's good games. Goth Rocker says 70 grand for a Kia is really insane. Hyundai puts Kia above them, but still they're not priced right. We all know Hyundai business structures like Ford was, Ford, Mercury, Lincoln, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis. Kind of. I don't know. I think Hyundai and Kia are pretty much on even footing, at least as far as I perceive it, because with Kia pricing, it's usually pretty much the same as the Hyundai pricing. It's just that they have very different styling, but I feel like I don't know if there's even another car company that has a similar structure, but it's, to me, I've always viewed them on level footing, and the Genesis, of course, being the luxury one. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, the Kia was only priced, I think it was 63 grand for the EV6 GT. So far away from 70 grand. That's fully loaded, by the way, at 63. So, and now if there's discounts and stuff, they're going to be in the 50s. I think it's a solid buy still at that price point. Again, as long as, you're not into the Model Y performance, basically, which, I mean, I still don't love the Model Y styling. I don't know about you guys, but it's still just the styling on those does not look good. So from a styling standpoint alone, I'd rather have an EV6, if the money is flexible. But I see Brianna was asking about where I'm at. Yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania here in the Pittsburgh area. Rafi says, not car related, but have you ever played the Sonic games? I played the old ones on Sega Genesis. And then my buddy used to have it on Dreamcast back in the day. So again, also very much dating myself there. So I played it a lot on Dreamcast, and I played it on the original Sega Genesis, but I have not played Sonic since then. But they were always fun games too. Saul says, thanks for the input, Matt, in chat. Just trying to find the perfect balance for a daily driver. Connected mechanical feel, manual preferred, some bells and whistles, great looks and visibility. Yeah, so I really think the M2 is probably your best bet if you're open to BMW. I think that'd be, I mean, I don't know about the great looks part. That's debatable, but if you want to go better looking, go for the previous gen, potentially that could be a great choice too. And there's some other stuff out there. I think Supra, that would be another great choice for sure. And let me see here. Other questions. Caleb says you do a movie review on Gran Turismo on the live stream. Yeah, that movie looks really promising. I don't know if I'll have a chance to go out and see that either. I still have yet to see Fast 10, so we'll see. I'm hoping to maybe see. I think this weekend Beth and I are gonna try and see Barbie because she's really excited about that, and I'm hoping I'll see Oppenheimer because I'm super into Christopher Nolan. Anyone who knows about all my Batman history, so I'm hoping to maybe finally get back to the movies here this weekend and see those two. Yeah, that's it. I don't know about the Gran Turismo movie. I'd like to try to see it because it looks really good, but we'll see if that happens or not. Trying to carve out more free time for myself and doing some more fun things here. And we're getting a little more freedom here the older and older that our daughter gets. So trying to branch out a little more and take some time for myself because I've really put myself on the back burner these past few years, just trying to be the best dad I possibly can. So just one of those things that everything else gets kind of tossed off into the dirt, in the meantime. But Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what are your thoughts on the Camaro Collector's Edition? It's essentially a cosmetic option. If you wanted a V6 Collector's Edition, it'd be $39,000 because it requires the RS package. Yeah, it's a collector's edition and it's properly named. It's for people who are collectors that don't care about the price tag, that are hoping that maybe it'll be worth something someday. If you're actually interested in buying and driving a Camaro and you care about the value standpoint, skip the collector's package 100%. I mean, it seems like they're not building very many Camaros anymore, but if you can, just get a regular Camaro if you're into those. And that's another thing, going back to Saul, talking about how you want a mechanical connected feeling daily driver. I don't know how open either of you are to, the muscle cars, but Mustang and Camaro, great manuals, especially if you go for the Tremec and the Mustang. The Mustang MT82 is still fine, but Saul, you're talking about daily driver. The muscle cars are going to be better daily drivers than anything else that I mentioned because they're just so smooth and comfortable. But they still have good handling if you get them with their handling packages like the 1LD or the performance package on the Mustang. All the bells and whistles, heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel, all the tech you want. All that stuff. Looks, I would argue, or maybe not Camaro, but looks for the Mustang are better than maybe an M2 in my opinion, personally. Visibility is obviously Camaro isn't great, but Mustang's better. So maybe nix the Camaro, Saul, but Mustang's a valid consideration, I think. And even the Challenger, the safety is not amazing on the Challenger. If you don't care about that, they still offer them with a manual with a or I think even with the Hellcat motor, but I mean, that might be a little overboard for what you're looking for, but all very mechanical feeling for the Mustang and the Challenger. Manuals, great daily drivers, great livability, great bells and whistles. So just another thing out there for your consideration. But Tom, yeah, to your point, I don't think the collector's edition makes any sense to buy unless you're a collector. And Joel says Fast 10 is so divorced from reality, in my opinion. Don't be in a hurry to see it, Matt. Well, thanks. I appreciate the little warning there. Yeah, I'm probably just one of these days when it finally comes on Peacock, because we have that streaming service. Once it finally comes on there, I'll probably watch it for free. Some night when I have some free time, and the stars align where I have 2.5 hours of free time to kill. But yeah, I'm not super in a hurry. But that was the first Fast and Furious movie that I've not seen in theaters. aside from the first one because I was too young to see it and my parents wouldn't let me go see it as a 12-year-old seeing a PG-13 movie. But yeah, actually I guess I was 11 at that point when that came out. But regardless, yeah, aside from that, I've seen every single one in theaters until Fast 10. So that was a little sad I missed it, but I'll see it eventually here. Yeah, Challenger Chris also says, love my Challenger. Even with the SRT suspension, it still glides. Yeah, they're such good daily drives. I mean, I did those road to SEMA road trips many years back, and I drove all through the Nevada desert in Challenger Hellcats, you know, chasing Chris Fix and Engineering Explained and Eric the Car and all those guys, Humble Mechanic, racing through the desert and SRT products. So much fun. I spent a lot of time behind the wheel of the Challengers on road trips. They are so comfortable. Such a good road trip car. And Wild Frame says, I will say one fun fact for the channel. A big part of secondhand luxury cars, and not only in Bulgaria, are imported from the USA and Canada. Mine also, usually salvaged or with minor damages. Yeah, it's kind of crappy that they just always give, you know, some of these other countries these, you know, salvaged vehicles. It's interesting how that happens. I guess, you know, a lot of people aren't as hung up on that stuff, so they can get better money for them elsewhere in the world. But even like my Mustang EcoBoost, which had like a minor fender bender, it seems, according to the Carfax I talked about a few months back, minor, like someone bumped into I think the front and the back somehow. Maybe it was a worse wreck than Carfax is reporting, but I mean, that one got shipped off to the Netherlands and I haven't heard about it since. So my EcoBoost, I'm assuming, is still over there, but it's kind of funny how so many of those salvage cars just end up getting shipped to another country. And two says Elon versus Zuckerberg, who will win? I'm going for Zuckerberg because he can actually fight. Also, have you seen the video where Elon talks about when they dropped the Roadster to Top Gear to test? I didn't hear about that, about the Top Gear thing. I'd be curious to check that out. Elon said when he arrived, they already had a script where the car would break. Interesting. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of Top Gear stuff was scripted for sure. You know, I mean, even the new stuff like the Grand Tour, like you can tell like some of these things are clearly set up and they have a plan ahead of time, and you know they kind of always pick one person to kind of get the short end of the stick every episode, and it's, you know, it's a whole thing, but I still lovable nonetheless. As far as Elon versus Zuckerberg, that is, I think, a more controversial thing I don't want to wade into because there's now a lot of attachment to Elon all of a sudden because of the Twitter stuff. So I won't jump in on that. So I will plead the fifth on that one. But it's interesting about the story. Thanks for telling me about the Top Gear thing. I hadn't heard that. Wildframe says it's very cheap. They imported them in the past, like destructed cars that are scrapped, then rebuild and pass regulations. Now it's harder because it's still going. One, because it's cheap. It's a cheap way to get a new car. Gotcha. Well, that's great that at least it brings down the affordability and helps it to be better in that regard. Saul says, if I had the money and the career I have at the time, your Mustang Bullet would have been the one. Love that color. Do you think it'll come back with this new generation? My bet is no. Now it's funny because every generation of the Bullet they say is going to be the last one. Not Ford, but all the owners. Everyone that you know, I think people kind of maybe expected the 2008 one because it was so retro, but I wish I had $1 for every single time I saw on Facebook in the Bullet owners groups, or even in Facebook or YouTube comments, Facebook comments. So many people were like, they're never going to do a 2019 Bullet. They'll never do it. There's no way. No one remembers who Steve McQueen is anymore. No one likes Bullets. No one knows what Bullet is. Blah, 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 blah. The 08s were the best ones anyway with the round headlights, on and on. A million reasons why they were never going to do a new Bullet. And then they did. So I don't want to fall into that same stereotypical answer, but I really do not think they're going to do a new Bullet because it seems like Ford's doing just a different trajectory for this new gen Mustang, where they're not doing historical stuff. They could have done a Mach 1. Essentially, the Dark Horse is a Mach 1. It's a Tremec with a little bit more breathing power to give a minor bump in power. That's what the Bullet has done. That's what the Mach 1 has done, and other versions as well. So Dark Horse in my mind is, you know, like a modern Bullet Mach 1 as far as the mechanicals, especially with the Tremec. It's basically Mach 1, you know, but they didn't call it the Mach 1. They didn't give it the Mach 1 retro looks. Why? Because I think, you know, you see the digital gauges on the new Mustang. They're Fox body. They're going for the new generation callbacks now. So I think if you see any kind of heritage version of this new generation Mustang, you'll see an SVO, because right now there is no manual EcoBoost, and I think there are still a small group of people that would still buy a new manual EcoBoost, and I think Ford knows that. And I think if my crystal ball predictions are, right, I think you will see an SVO EcoBoost Mustang that has maybe a little more power out of the EcoBoost motor. Maybe it's like their off-the-shelf for performance tune kind of thing where it's, a little bit extra power and that's it. But you'll see a manual only in the SVO, and they do some thing of that. Since they're into the Fox body thing, and that was kind of in the Fox body era there with the SVO, that would be the only thing I could see them doing potentially. But if it's not Fox body era or newer, I wouldn't count on any kind of homage. And obviously Bullet was a new thing, started in 2001, but it goes back to the 60s, and I think they just are getting rid of the 60s heritage with the Mustang at this point in time. So I think you see Dark Horse, and I think if you see a new Shelby, that'll even be a stretch, but it might just be something they feel like they need to do because everyone is expecting it. But I think with the Bullet, there's very few people that are going to be expecting that, and they sold pretty well. I think they overproduced the 2019s, doing them into 2020. And towards the end there, they maybe built a little bit more than they should have, but I think they did a pretty good job selling all of them. So hopefully it was a worthwhile thing for Ford to do. But you still had a lot of those people who were, the boomers, but the boomers that were into that were still able to buy the 19s. And if we follow the same timeline, you're not going to see a new Bullet until, if they want to stick to the 50th anniversary, 60th anniversary kind of things, the next one would be in 2028, which would probably be prime time for them to do some type of, parts bin special edition thing like the Bullet is. But I wonder, if 5 years from now, there will be enough of those boomer buyers that are willing to buy a new one, especially if it's got all of the safety tech on it that a lot of them don't want. And, it would still have a V8 and a manual most likely, but, it's still, I feel like it's going to be an uphill battle selling it since, again, so much of that buyer demographic is older for the Bullet. So long answer, but I don't think there'll be a new one. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're even remotely open to Mustangs, though, you can always buy a used Bullet too. I still think, like I said in my update video, I still think they're a solid buy right now, considering to get the same stuff you get in a Bullet in a new 2024 Mustang will cost you $60,000. Now, part of that is inflation, and I was actually shocked because I didn't realize it had jumped this much in the past few years. But my $51,000 I paid in 2018 for the Bullet is equivalent to about $61,000 right now in 2023. So they're pricing it actually, I thought it was actually higher and more out of line, but it actually is pretty in line with inflation. Now that's for a regular Mustang, not a special edition like the Bullet. So I'd say they're still maybe $2,000 over where they should be. But I think that, it just means bottom line, if you can pick up a Bullet for $45,000 that's low miles in good shape, and pick up you never missed a beat there a few years back and you have that career now to spend that kind of money, go for a Bullet. Obviously I'm biased, but my money speaks for itself. That's where I put my money, is the Bullet. I love the GR86, but to me, I want that daily driver comfort. So I want the luxury features. I want something that has it all, and the Bullet really does it all, I think, in a lot of ways. Anyway, sorry for the long answer, but there you go. And Chandra Chris says, I'd buy a GR86 with a couple dings for $10,000 cheaper. Heck yeah. Yeah. If it's something like that, I can totally see the appeal there for those salvage cars. Tom says, my uncle from Mexico has a Ford Ranger manual. It's a bare bones pickup. It didn't even come with a lock for the tailgate. That's awesome. I wish they'd sell stuff like that here, because I think they'd sell more of them than they actually think they would. And Hugo says, while I was delivering, I met a guy who had an 09 Mustang Bullet with only 30,000 miles. He said he'll never sell his Bullet. He loves it. That's awesome. And a lot of them are really low miles. A lot of those guys, they're real garage queens, and there's guys that brag about only having 1,000 miles on their Bullet. As you guys know, I'm the exact opposite, and I want to put 200,000 miles on mine if I ever get the time someday. But there's a lot of really nice ones. So another thing, Saul, yeah, if you're looking for a low mileage Bullet, even the 19s, there should be plenty of them out there that are really low miles to pick up, that are basically like brand new cars, again, for way less than a new 2024. And Two says, Matt is scared to pick a side because chances are one of them will end up being his business daddy when they buy YouTube. Oh, man. Don't even say that. Oh, that is a horrifying thought. Man. Yeah, if one of them buys YouTube and tanks it, then that would really be upsetting, because then that would tank my career and I wouldn't be doing this anymore. So we were going to knock on wood, and we can do all the special things we need to do to ward off the bad spirits and hope that doesn't happen, because that is that's a horrifying thought. Please, Elon and Zuckerberg stay far away from YouTube. And Challenger Chris says, well, I think the car makers need to produce a poverty edition, roll up windows, no power, anything, and a club for the steering wheel. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've said a few times in the past, you probably remember, I wish I could start a car company where, we build $15,000 cars. They're solid, safe cars, but they just have a basic radio, roll up windows, no power locks, and just put it out there. And I think there'd be a lot of people that would be actually okay with that, And Hugo says, I think they'll come out with a Bullet EV. Maybe, but getting into a Bullet EV, I mean, I can guarantee you that not all, a large majority of the current Bullet owners, they are the type that hate EVs. And I think that most of them would not touch a Bullet EV with a 10-foot pole. And they'd all say that Steve McQueen would be rolling over in his grave and all that. I think it would be a potential cool thing. They could have a fake soundtrack to make it sound exactly like the 68 car and to have even that famous soundtrack in the background. So I would be opposed to it. And, I probably would never buy it because, again, mine is a keeper and I like having the V8 and the manual and all that. But maybe if I could add to my collection someday, I'd be open to something like that. But especially if you're going super futuristic, then that to me would further cement the idea that they ditch the historical stuff and really forge ahead with new ideas like the Maki is, where you have the Maki having, this new rally edition, and we're hearing about a Mustang Raptor. That's the kind of stuff you'll probably see in the future. Mustang Raptor, not a Mach 1, not a Bullet. It'll be Raptor. It'll be maybe a rally version of the regular Mustang as well, and all these other things. I think those are the new directions they're heading with the Mustang, with the Dark Horse, being really one of the more traditional new ones, and maybe again SVO, but that's probably going to be it as far as my guess. I could be completely wrong. We will see. But Jeremy, thanks for joining. Says, hey dude, hope all is well. Thanks for joining in. Everything's going well. Hope everything's doing well for you as well. Omar says, will you ever want to own every generation of Bullet? I wouldn't mind owning an 08 someday. And that's also been something like if, for example, someday I couldn't afford to keep the 19 or I needed to get rid of it to, make some money or something. An 08 would be a strong consideration. I wouldn't love going down in tech and in safety, but I really love the 08s. I came very close as a late teenager, early 20 something. I almost bought it when I was working at the car dealership I used to work at. They had an 08 on trade. This is probably 2009 or 2010. So I was either 19 or 20. And back then I needed to drive in snow. So I needed all-wheel drive, and I was a big Subaru fan, of course. So back then I couldn't justify it, but it got traded in and it got snapped up really fast, but it was like super cheap, just like my Legacy GT Spec B, where that was a 35 grand car that got traded in, and it was 1 year old and I bought it for 20 grand. It was insane. And this Bullet was the same way. I think the Bullet was 20 grand, maybe 25. And back then, I think those 08 Bullets retailed for 35 or 40. I could be wrong, but maybe my memory's off. But I thought they were around there. So anyway, it was a great deal. I test drove it very briefly. I did really love it. And I came close. So yeah, I would go for an 08. 01s have no appeal to me. I don't know why. That generation Mustang I'm not super into anyway. And the Bullet version is not really retro in any way, aside from the gauges and just kind of meh on the 01s. But I do love the 08s. And if I ever had to fire sell the Bullet because I needed money or something bad happened or something, 08 Bullet, if GRD6, was too expensive or something, 08 Bullet, if I could find one with high miles that actually was being sold by someone who wasn't one of these, I know what I have, I want $30,000 for it. If I could actually find a reasonable seller for an 08 and I needed to save some money, I would very strongly consider getting an 08 Bullet. I love the 08s. I love the retro gauges. I love the round headlights and the old school setup in those. 300 horsepower in those would be totally fine still. Yeah, never been into the 01s though. And Challenger Chris says Bullet EV would be like a Challenger EV. It would die before it started. Yeah, maybe. We'll see what ends up happening with the Charger, and if there is a new Challenger. I'm hoping we get some kind of info here in about a month at the Woodward Dream Cruise on the Challenger. But we'll see. It seems like they're going to forge ahead with some kind of electric Dodge muscle thing. So we'll see how that does for them. Hugo says, I think Ford wants to put the Raptor name in all their vehicles. I think an Expedition Raptor is coming. Yeah, that is definitely almost certainly happening. I think there was actually some spy shots of one, and they've, I think, trademarked the name. I think they said they want to Raptor all the things basically. So it's only a matter of time before it's spread out to pretty much everything, I think. 2 says Matt is planning to make his Bullet and Ed Bullen special high mileage examples of cars. I would love that. That was always my goal for the Bullet, and it's been unfortunate that it's been basically a garage queen for the past 4 years here almost. But anyway, I see Elijah also says, hi, Matt. Thanks for joining in, Elijah. I appreciate you joining here on the live stream. 2 says, last question, have to go be a dad, but how would you feel about a car company releasing an EV with a true manual? I think it's great. I think that actually might be what Toyota's doing. I don't know if theirs has a physical clutch. I think maybe it was Honda that was talking about doing one of the physical clutch. Someone's doing it or prototyping something. We'll see if something like that ever comes to fruition, but it seems like someone's been thinking about doing that. I know the Toyota one, from the reports that I've read, it seems like it will be able to be stalled somehow, and that it's going to require some skill, and it will require a clutch pedal, I think, as well. So that's probably as close as we'll get, in the relative near term. But I think it'd be great. I can't wait to try that stuff out, like in the Ioniq 5N, and I'm excited to try out the Toyotas if they ever again come to a production car. That'd be great, because I think I'm all for the fun. Even if it's artificial, manufactured in fun, to me it's still fun. It's still more engaging than sitting there in silence, just humming along. So I'm excited for that stuff. And Tom says, have you ever had a bromance moment with another Bullet/Mustang owner? Whenever another ST owner sees me, they wave. Rev gives me a thumbs up and tries to race me. I don't know if I've ever had a bromance moment like that. Yeah. So there was one time I went on a Bullet drive with a bunch of them when they met up at the Carlisle Ford Nationals event. And I did that. I think that was either I think it was 2019. I did that. And that was a lot of fun driving with a bunch of them. I didn't really get to talk to too many of them. There was a few people that said hi to me, but they kind of all had their own friend groups already. And it was very quick. I had to come in at like midnight the night before. I had to hurry up and do the event, and I had to get out of there because I had to go to another thing. So it was a very frantic, quick kind of thing, but I still wanted to do it. So I did it. And but that was cool cruising with some other Bullets there. But I've never actually, whenever I drive my Bullet, I never see other Bullets. And then whenever I'm not in my Bullet, I see other Bullets. Like I had a Toyota Grand Highlander last week, and I was just going to the grocery store one night, and I see a Bullet roll up, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I was driving mine right now. And instead I'm in a Grand Highlander, which is a very nice thing, but it's not as fun as the Bullet. So that was kind of like, oh man, like I should be driving my Bullet, but I'm tripping, I'm doing the wrong thing. So that was one of those kind of moments there a bit, but it's always fun seeing another Bullet out there. Truck and Car Guy says, I already have a car with 200,000 miles on it. That's awesome. I'm jealous of the mileage you're able to do. That's awesome. I don't know if I've ever, it'd be fun to someday try and figure out, between all the press cars I've driven and all the miles I've put on my own personal cars, how many miles I've gotten up to. I've maybe done 200,000 miles total in my life in my own personal cars, but maybe not even, probably less than that, honestly. Unfortunately, this is one of the things. It's so funny how, working from home, and it's weird. Like, I'm doing car reviews and I'm always driving different cars, but like most of you probably actually drive more than I do. Because I'm just working from home. I'm so jealous of everyone that has commutes. I wish I had a commute, but I don't. It's convenient, and it gives me more time at home and less time, wasted, sitting in traffic and stuff. But I desperately wish I had more time to drive. And Omar says, I wish they would have made a Bullet version for the 2014 generation, a mix of the 08 and somewhat this current generation Mustang would have looked sick. I agree. I was so badly wanting a 2013 or 2014 Bullet. And I guess it was just too soon after the 08 that they didn't want to do it. But I even considered building one. I really wanted to just take a 13 and wrap it dark green and put the torque thrust wheels on it. That would have been awesome, because it had the retro gauges. I love the sequential taillights that they introduced. It had the LEDs there for the round headlights. And I love the 13 and 14 still so much. I had so much fun reviewing That Dude in Blues way back when, in 2013, I think it was, or 2012. And that was back when his was pretty close to stock still. But I love that generation. And if they had done one of those, I can actually say pretty certain that if they had done one of those and I could have afforded it, which was a big if, but if I could have afforded, I would have sold the BRZ for that car. And I almost sold the BRZ for a regular 2013 Mustang GT whenever those first came out, because I loved the way they looked, and I was so into the marketing, and I was so into, like, I was just on the Mustang train even back then. And if you remember, I actually did a video. I bought the BRZ, but I was kind of underwhelmed with the acceleration originally. And I actually went out and test drove a 13 Mustang GT like a couple weeks after I bought the BRZ, and was like, I think I actually titled the video, "I don't love my BRZ yet." And that was, me just basically talking about how I kind of really was feeling the pull for the Mustang even back when I first bought the BRZ. And thankfully I did it, was able to, make the Mustang thing a reality a few years later. But it was something that always pulled at my heartstrings. But yeah, I agree with you. A 13 or 14 Bullet would have been perfect. And that'd be a fun, like, project car to do someday, put the, just basically just wrap it and do a few mild things and call it good. But that'd be a fun build still. Elijah said, next week I'll be buying a 2016 Volvo V60 cross country, not the Ford Bronco like I wanted, but a wagon is a nice change. Well, that's awesome. I mean, the V60s are great. I really like the cross country. I don't know 2016 if that was the current generation or the prior one, but I mean, I really like this current generation. When I had one for a week, they're great vehicles, and just, I love wagons, so it's always can appreciate someone doing a wagon purchase. So good for you, and hopefully you enjoyed, even if it's not the Bronco there. And Daniel says, when are you going to cage fight Doug DeMuro? Never. Violence is not the answer. But that would be what a world we live in. We're talking about cage fighting, like with Zuck and Elon. It's so bizarre. I don't know. This timeline is all kinds of messed up. But anyway, that's a funny question, Daniel. Thanks for asking. Mike says, what was your worst press event experience? I don't know if there's been an absolute worst. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them that are challenging, but there's never been anything that's been super bad. I guess if I had to pick one that was the worst, I mean, again, this is not like horrible or anything, but I'd say the worst one for me was the Hyundai Palisade for the pre-refresh version. So I went on a regional event for that, because this was like before Hyundai was inviting me on all the national stuff. So it was a regional Palisade event, and it was fine. We were driving on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It was very nice and all that. And so the problem was, back then, Hyundai's gotten better about this recently, but back then they were still focused on like the journalists that just write. And so there's been this thing in the industry where there's like some car companies that have figured out that a lot of us, especially YouTubers, need free time with the car to just not go anywhere. Like when I'm on a press event, I just want to sit in a parking lot for an hour or maybe even 2 and just film the B-roll. I have to film all those exterior shots. I got to film my what's up everybody, blah, blah, blah. I got to film all that. I got to film the interior and all the interior B-roll. And that stuff takes time. And a lot of these car companies, they were used to structuring these events for journalists who just want to drive, and that's it. And that's what you're there to do, is drive the car, right? So they were like, let's give you as much drive time as possible. And this Hyundai Palisade event was one of those events where there was no time to stop aside from like a 5-minute potty break and grab a coffee on the side of the road and then get back in the car and keep driving. And so it made it really hard to film that. But the things that made it even worse, were that there was a little bit of free time where basically on the events that are structured like that, I just skip lunch. I'm like, okay, you didn't give me any time to film this car in a stationary, setting. And so I will just skip lunch and I will film through lunch when the cars are sitting there at the lunch parking lot, is what I've done many times. And then, I just deal and don't eat that day, and then, get the filming that I need to get done. But with the Palisade event, we get to the lunch spot and they're like, okay, well, we got a good amount of time, because it was at the Biltmore, I think is the name of the big estate there in North Carolina. And so there was going to be a lunch to Biltmore, and then there's going to be a little bit of free time. There's a little like off-roading course they were going to do and all this extra stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll skip the off-road thing and I'll just, have a quick little lunch, and then I will, go and film. And so they're like, okay, well, when you get to the Biltmore, leave all your camera gear in the car because you're going to keep the same car for whenever you leave. And, there's a dozen cars on all these events. So, a lot of times they all look the same. They're the same color. And, sometimes you do swap into a different car. And that's why sometimes you'll see in my reviews, 1 minute I'm in a red car with a brown interior. The next minute I'm in a black car with a white interior or whatever. That's because we're shuffling through cars all day on a lot of these things. But in this one, they're like, we're going to stay in the same car. Cool. Leave my stuff in the car, go eat lunch, have a nice lunch. And, I came back. Okay, I'm ready to film. What car number are you? I'm car number, 10 or whatever. Okay, cool. Oh, wait, car number 10 looks like it's not here. What do you mean it's not here? Looks like someone hopped into the wrong car and we let them leave. The fleet programs are supposed to check and say, okay, you are in this car and this is the car you need to leave in, and check before these people leave. But I guess these people either snuck out or they weren't doing their job that day. I don't know, but they let people leave with all my camera gear in the back. I'm like, okay, well, that is literally everything. All my camera stuff is there. And unless I do like a selfie on my iPhone, I'm not filming this car. And so they were like, oh, well, we'll call them and try and get in touch with them. Unfortunately, a lot of the Blue Ridge Parkway has terrible service. They weren't able to get a hold of them for a while. And so they're like, well, while you're here, like, you want to just do the off-road course? Sure. Okay, I'll do the off-road course. The off-road course, we were in the top of the line Palisades, which, I mean, none of them have sporty tires for off-roading, but we were in this off-road course, and it's way too small of an off-road course for a 3-row crossover that's not designed for off-roading. So I basically get to a point where I had to stop, and the guy, one of the Hyundai reps at the time, was in the passenger seat, and he's like, oh, like, looks like we're going to have to turn around because this is struggling. I don't know if the weather was bad and the trail got washed out or what, but I had to turn around mid-trail. So then there was no room. So I had to do like a 20-point turn to turn around and go back the other way. So the off-roading thing was a nightmare. I get back and they're like, oh, we still don't have your camera gear, but don't worry, it's going to be waiting for you at the hotel. Great. Okay, so now the entire day I got to drive all the way back. I can't film any drive impressions on the way back. I can't film any at all. I can't film any stand-up. I can't do anything. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I will race back to the hotel. Hopefully, I get there around the same time they get there. I can get my camera gear and try and salvage something in an Applebee's parking lot, nearby or something like that. So I get back and then it starts to rain. So I'm like, okay, well, that's not great. And then I also, the way the day was structured, by the time I got back, I had like a half an hour before dinner, and I could have just skipped the dinner, but this was during a time of year where there wasn't a lot of sunlight. So it was starting to get dark and it was raining and there was nowhere to go because it was it was like in like downtown Asheville, North Carolina, and there wasn't a lot of free spaces unless I drove further out. And so basically what ended up happening was I filmed in the breezeway of the hotel, like with valet guys, like walking through my shots in the rain. It was like kind of rainy under the awning, kind of not. And there was like a bunch of, commotion and cars. And I'm like, the lighting was horrible. If you watch my original Palisade review, it's terrible. And that's why I'm glad I was able to do the refresh and do a good review on a Palisade, because that was not a good video. And I'll be the first to admit it was horrible, but it was just like, that was a press trip from hell, I guess you could say, as far as bad as they get. Not like that was horrible. I didn't crash or have anything terrible actually happen. It was just a giant headache. So very long answer for you there, Mike, but that was hands down the biggest fiasco as far as reviewing cars that I can remember. I think that's the one that stands out to me when people say, what's the worst? And Omar says, if a Bullet owner adds an OEM GT Mustang packaged wing spoiler to their Bullet, is that frowned upon by the Bullet community? Some people in the Bullet community will frown upon that, yes. And there's been plenty of people. There's this whole debate because I'm still part of the Bullet Facebook group for some reason. And there's a bunch of people who are like, oh, I can't believe you modified your Bullet. And a lot of people are also like, well, it's your car. Do whatever makes you happy. Obviously, the whole ethos with the Bullet is it's supposed to be minimalistic. Steve McQueen, when he was doing the movie cars, chose dark green because he wanted them to be low profile. He, wanted them to not have the badges or the driving lights or anything because he wanted it to be a low profile undercover detective cop car. That's what it was supposed to be. So if you are buying into what the Bullet is and its heritage, then you should keep it low profile. And that means get rid of the silly wings and spoilers and all that stuff. But again, some people just don't care about all the Steve McQueen stuff and they just want a dark green Mustang, and or they just like the look for whatever reason. And that's fine. And those people can, slam it and do, crazy louvers and spoilers and graphics and hood scoops. And I've seen it all. I mean, there's people that, just basically go down the line in the parts catalog and just say, I'll take one of each and slap it all on the car. And that's fine. It's just, again, everyone's personal preference. So in the bully community, I'd say it's divided, but don't worry about what the bully community thinks, because they're a tough crowd to please sometimes anyway. But anyway, Tom says, have you ever been to a car reveal that had a lot of hype and didn't get the reaction the manufacturer thought they would get? Kind of like a comedian not getting any laughs. Usually not on an event reveal, because usually with those, everyone's excited and we're all there having a good time, and you just, it's fine. But there's been a couple of times where I've been at an auto show back when they actually did their actual reveal at the auto show and didn't spoil the surprise at midnight the night before, where there's been a few where I don't remember the exact ones, but there's been a few where they were like, the executive was like, all right, like, yeah, we got it out. Like, what do you think? And there's not a whole lot. And like, all right, let's give it a, and like, they ask for applause, give a hand to all these people that work so hard on this. And then you get people like, oh, okay, but like, there's some of that. I can't remember where that was, when that happened the last time, but there's been a couple of times in the past where I've kind of had a smirk on my face, like, this is kind of awkward. But usually, there's always enough people to clap and make it so that it's not, crickets out there. Trucking Car Guy says, I have had that happen where I'm driving one of my cars and I see someone driving a similar version of my other car. Example, driving my Lancer and seeing a Magnum drive by. Yeah, that's always unfortunate. Garth Rocker says, I think the factory bullet Mustang look is perfect. Personally, not a fan of a large wing or spoiler on any car, but especially on a Mustang, doesn't seem right to me. And that's okay, but I think there's certainly a place for it in certain instances. And again, that's the great thing about the car community. We all, can like different things, and that's what's great about customization, is having it mirror you and what you want and your desires and your wishes. And that's always different for everybody. And that's what makes, the car world great, is that reflection of your personality. And Alpha Rat says, my job is almost opposite. I drive all the time, but never know exactly where I'm going. Well, that's cool. Yeah, it's kind of funny because, one of the Facebook groups I really enjoy checking out is Mileage Impossible. And it's since I have this fascination with high mileage stuff, where people post these insanely high mile vehicles that are, it's sometimes really shocking. Some of these things that get up to super high miles, things that people typically think are horrible vehicles. And it's like, nope, mine's got 400,000 miles. And, it's either a luck thing or, some freak accident sometimes, but it's one of those things. But it's awesome. One of the things though, with that group, getting to your question about never knowing exactly where you're going, some of these people that do these huge miles are like these medical couriers that are, driving transplant organs or other very highly sensitive, high rush things. And I always thought, they don't get paid very much, but that would be like probably close to a perfect job. I wouldn't love being away from home that much, because it seems like they do a lot of hours. But if it was just like me on my own, like, I'm not super into like driving an 18-wheeler or something, because it's just like very intimidating to me. And I just feel like they also just are treated terribly on the road many times. But, I'd love to be a medical courier and just be driving life-saving things to people at, fast pace and just driving tons of miles. Some of these people are doing 200,000 miles a year and stuff, which I'm sure probably would get really old real fast, but I'd love to do something like that where you're just driving tons and tons of miles. And Golden Boy says, ever considered a C7 Z06? I feel like the price of Corvettes have jumped dramatically. Z06 C7, in my opinion, was kind of a mess dynamically. Maybe this is crazy to say, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but when I reviewed the C7 Z06, it was all over the place. Like, could not put the power down to save its life. And I don't know if it was the one that I had or what, but like, that was a sketchy car to drive in any kind of sporty manner. Maybe I don't know what it comes down to. It's been years since I drove one, so I'd love to try out another one again and see, if there was something with the one that I had and the tires on it or what, but they were a mess from my experience, at least. Regular C7 is great. And I think regular C7, I don't know if the prices on those have shot up as well, but regular C7 used to be a fantastic deal. And when everyone was dumping their C7s to get a C8 in the past couple of years here, C7s kind of dropped a little bit, and I thought a used C7 was a great buy. And I've always loved the C7. I think they're fantastic cars. And the Z01 was great, plenty of grip in those, obviously, but the Z06 just was really sloppy from my experience. And Tom says, was there any car that you disliked the styling, but when you saw it in person, it looked better or even great? Yeah, I think so. I think the Ioniq 6 looks better in person than the pictures might suggest. Um, what was another one? There is one or two where I have kind of changed my opinion on it a little bit. I think Integra looked a little weird in the first pictures, the regular Integra. But when you see an Integra in person, I think it does look better. I still don't think it's like the most amazing looking thing or anything, but I think that those certainly have warmed up to me. I'm trying to think of any others. I think those are probably the only two off the top of my head. Very curious if there's any you guys have changed your minds about recently. But Omar says Grand Highlander or Volkswagen Atlas. I've not driven the new Atlas, but what I know about the new Atlas is, there's a lot of capacitive touch buttons. It has that infotainment system that's not great. And the powertrain's kind of meh, in my opinion. Grand Highlander has 3 great powertrains, way easier to use the screens, real climate controls with actual knobs. I think it actually might have a little more space than the Atlas as well now. Grand Highlander is really fantastic. And I just had one for a week, Omar. I'm sure you've already watched my full review on the Grand Highlander, hopefully. But I did have one for a week. I'll be doing a follow-up video on the Grand Highlander here relatively soon in the next couple of weeks. And I will have more to say about the Grand Highlander and that. But it is now probably, in most cases, going to be my top recommendation for a three-row crossover. Now, depending on what people like and their preferences, one of the other ones may be better for certain people. But I think whenever I'm giving a blanket recommendation for a three-row crossover now to someone, Grand Highlander is probably going to be what I'm going to recommend for a variety of reasons, whether it's reliability, whether it's just the insane amount of space, the very smooth ride, the great choice of powertrains to fit whatever you're looking for, competitive pricing. I feel like it's really tough to do better than Grand Highlander right now. CX-90 is very luxurious and handles better, but the transmission in that's meh, and it's also doesn't have as much space as the Grand Highlander, which I think is the key thing for that segment, is just having boatloads of space. And CX-90 is not bad, but Grand Highlander is better. And you don't have to worry about the knob and the, Grand Highlander. You just have a touchscreen, unlike the Mazda and stuff. So, I don't know. I feel like Grand Highlander is pretty much, to me, the new king in this segment. Boosted JT says, have you ever driven a 90s Turbo Civic? If not, come review mine. I have not, but I would love to. Please send me an email. There's in the description of this video. My email address is down there. If you can send me an email, and if you're not super far from Pittsburgh, I would love to set something up. Now, I do have a lot of cars that have been offered to me, so depending on where you're at will depend on how soon I can review it. I always give priority, of course, to anything that's closest to me. But if you're remotely close to Pittsburgh, that's one I would love to review. Thank you for offering it. And yeah, please send me an email. And even if I can't get to it super soon and you are further away, please still send me that email, because I will file it away. I save all my offers for vehicles that have been offered to me. So if I'm ever in that place and I happen to have enough free time to do a car review, I will certainly look and, find that email, send you a message, and, make something happen, because I really appreciate all those offers. And it's always so much fun to meet up with viewers and review their cars. So I'd love to do a 90s Turbo Civic. That sounds like a blast. And I'm sure you probably love it as well. But thanks for offering that. Arden says, hi, Matt. What, in your opinion, is the best car that has released in the last year? The last year. Well, I mean, my personal bias is going to have to come into effect here, because otherwise, best is a subjective thing. It comes down to what you consider best and what you like best. But for me, the best thing in the past year, I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say the Integra Type S is up there. It's one of my favorites. GR Corolla, I will have to wait till I drive one more, but that's probably pretty high up there as well. Just all those fun, relatively affordable cars are really where my heart is. And so those are the ones that to me stand out as, the really exciting stuff. So GR86 is kind of a little bit, it's not, I think it's, more like 2 years that's been out, but that's another one that's, one of my top favorites for sure. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, not that people care on the channel, but it's possible a year from now we might get the Lincoln Zephyr here in the States. Ford is bringing back the Taurus, by the way. Yeah, I hope they do bring all that stuff back. And that would be great if they did. That sounds awesome to me. Zachary says, "Hey Matt, have you had the chance to drive the PHEV CX-90? If you have, do you have any complaints? I work at a Mazda dealer, and the only 2 complaints I have are the transmission and the regen braking." I drove one for half of the day on the original CX-90 launch. So if you watch my CX-90 review, that one covers both the plug-in hybrid and the regular, inline 6 there. So I did spend a half a day with it. I'm hoping to get one for a week eventually as well to get more in-depth, thoughts on it. But so far, PHEV, I actually really liked. I think I actually kind of prefer it over the inline 6, which again is probably a very unpopular opinion among enthusiasts. But I think the PHEV actually drives a little faster, actually feels a little faster off the line because it has the same pretty much horsepower as the inline, the inline 6. But that just is instant with that electric zap. I like having the electric range. I think it's great. It's something that no one else in that segment really offers. And I think with PHEVs, in my opinion, the strongest version of the CX-90 from a just compelling standpoint, I think. And so transmission is still a problem with that. I agree with you there. It's still, because even though it's hybridized, everything still goes through that transmission, which, as we both know, isn't great. It's doable. And again, if you want an electric experience in a 3-row, that's the only way to go right now. And I think it's certainly still livable, and I would totally go for it if that's something you're into. Regen braking, I didn't remember having any complaints about the regen on the ones that I drove, at least. Maybe they are bad. I'll have to, again, spend more time with it to see. The thing with braking too, I don't know, if you're driving brand new vehicles at a dealership, just also, as brakes are sometimes kind of weird, with brand new cars coming off the truck, whether they've, been rusted from transit or something, so hopefully that's something that would get better over time, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I basically have the same complaint there with the transmission. That's basically it. And Luke says his friend's parents have ordered a Grand Highlander. That's awesome. Hope they enjoy it. Diego says, Matt, what are some of your bucket list cars to review? Viewer used older cars. Apologize if it's been asked already. No, I don't think it has been asked. So bucket list cars to review. So as far as those 3 go, I can actually pull up my list here, and I can tell you some of the stuff on my wait list and what I'm hoping to someday get to. So one of the ones is an NSXT, a 300ZX twin turbo. Those are 2 cars I wanted to do for a long time. The new Mach 1, I still have yet to review. That's another one that I've been waiting on here, that I have on a wait list here. Other vehicles I've been really wanting to review here. Let me see. There's a supercharged S2000 waiting for me, which would be a lot of fun. There's an RX-7 that was offered to me a long time ago. I don't even know if the person still has it, but I'd love to review those FD RX-7s. So it's one of those ones I've just never gotten around to. There is a 911 GT3 Touring that has been offered to me a few years back. I would love to drive that one someday on a personal level, and just, I think it would be a really good video too. Just the reaction to a 9,000 RPM redline like that. Other ones here, let me see. I'm almost done. Let me see other stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a Trans Am, which is something I've always wanted to review. There's a Datsun 280Z, which would be another really cool one. There's someone with a 66 Mustang. I'd love to drive another vintage Mustang. I have already reviewed, a 67, but I'd love to do a 66 in that slightly smaller generation. There's a Lotus Elise, another one I've been wanting to do for a long time. There's one of those that's been offered to me. A couple different NSXs that I'd love to drive. And then the last 3 that I'd love to get to, but I doubt I'll ever get to these because they're kind of very far away. But one is a Ferrari 355. That's one I'd love to do. There's a 1972 Mach 1 Mustang that's been offered to me a long time ago. That's another one I'd love to do. And lastly, there's someone that offered an F-Type SVR. I've never driven the SVR version of the F-Type. That would be another one for the books. So those are probably my top ones there that I'd love to get to someday. Don't hold your breath for any of them, but hopefully I can someday do some of those. And Luke, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, it's amazing how cars have transformed. Modern compact cars are better than mid-sized sedans from 15 and 20 years ago. Yeah, it's great how technology's advanced, safety's advanced, everything has really advanced so much, and it's great to see. And thank you so much once again for the super chat, Luke. And Anna says, what do you think of the Stinger? I recently picked up a 2019 GT2, and I've been absolutely loving it. I love the Stinger. That was actually the first press drive I ever went on. I fell in love with it there. I had GT for a week. I had even the GT line for a week. They were all great. I love all the Stingers. They're fantastic. It was one of my top cars in the running. If I ever actually had to spend my own money on a four-door car for myself, Stinger was really high up there and still is very high up there as far as one of my favorites. I love the Stinger. I always swoon every time I see one on the road still. I love their versatility. I love the luxury, the comfort. It really is, that perfect kind of GT car for me with the practicality. It just has it all. I love the Stinger still, and I think it's one of those cars that was so underappreciated. But congrats on recently picking one up. That's awesome, and you made a great choice in my opinion. And thanks for supporting the Stinger cause, because again, like I said, I think they were really underappreciated. Elijah says, is there a price on the Volvo EX30 cross country? I don't think there is, and there probably won't be for a little while. Boosted JT says, do you still talk to Mr. Regular at all? I don't. We met up and did the video. This is probably 8 years ago on the EcoBoost, and I've never talked to him since then, actually. So no reason, just never crossed paths with him since. Never really had any collab opportunities since then. We could always collab, but just never had any kind of reason to trade cars or anything really. And he's also a little bit of a drive from me, so it's not super convenient to do either. But yeah, his videos seem to be great. I haven't watched his stuff in a while because I'm again so behind on YouTube stuff. But he's got a very funny sense of humor, and I enjoy his videos still. And Mojo says, aloha, Matt, come to Hawaii to drive our cars. Oh, aloha. I loved Kona. That was my first time in Hawaii for the Grand Highlander drive and the Tacoma reveal back in May. And Hawaii is such a special place. I desperately, desperately want to go back as soon as possible and as often as possible. I loved Hawaii. And I would love to review any cars on the island there, or any of the islands. I want to see all of Hawaii. I'd love to. I just was in Kona and flew through Honolulu, but I'd love to see Maui and all the others. It's such a amazing place. I was working most of the time. I didn't hardly even have any time to have any actual fun of my own, but still, just even being there, just working and sitting on my laptop, sitting on the balcony at my hotel, just was still so nice. It's just such an amazing place. So I'm jealous of your location. And he also says, thoughts on the Ford Maverick. I think the Ford Maverick's great. I think they're a really solid value if you go for the lower end cheap ones. I think the expensive ones get a little debatable with their value, but I think that especially those hybrid ones that get insane in fuel economy and they're insanely cheap, like base model Maverick is one of the best values in the car world right now. And they just raised the price, I think about $700 or something. Still think it's a really good value. I still think it's fantastic. I really love the little Mavericks there. And I'm really hoping to drive the front wheel drive. And I've only driven the all wheel drive turbo version, which is great too. But I've heard great things about the front wheel drive one, and I think they're awesome. And hopefully they actually build more of them so more people can get them. Mike says, Matt, what automaker do you think makes the most cringe advertisements and commercials? There are some. I'm trying to think. I can't think of it off the top of my head. There have been some where I've been like, man, like, what are they thinking? And there's even one, it was just a couple months ago where I was talking to Beth about it, and as a commercial came on, and I'm like, I cannot believe this is how they're marketing this car, but I can't remember which one it was. If I think of it, I'll let you know, but I don't want to sit here and stare at the ceiling while I think. But there have been a couple where it's just been pretty cringy. And Diego says, who are your favorite journalists to hang out with at press events? Well, the good news is most of us are all, pretty good friends and are always, we're all mostly on all good terms. Most of us, it's a very, very pretty chill, drama-free group compared to other, maybe YouTube circles. It's really one of the wonderful things about that whole scene is that we are all very non-competitive. We help each other. We're very easygoing with, oh, you want the red car instead of the black one? That's fine. I'll take the black one, whatever it is, things like that. Like, we're all really, really good. So it's really hard for me to say favorites. It would be easier for me to say the ones that I don't, talk to on events, but I don't want to, go down that route. So I'll just say that, I mean, a lot of the ones I've been working with a long time are, really, always my fun buddies that are great to hang out with. So Sophion from Redline Reviews is great. Alex on Autos is always great. Or I guess now it's Auto Buyer's Guide is the channel name now. It's always great talking with him. I always learn so much talking with him. But Joe Rady and his wife Lori are two of the nicest human beings on the planet as well. Every single time I see Joe, he goes out of his way to make sure he says hi to me if I don't say hi to him first. We always talk. We love hanging out. And I mean, Joe's a big deal these days. I mean, he's really 1 million subscribers now. Like, everyone wants to talk to Joe. I mean, Joe's so nice. Everyone always wants to talk to Joe and Lori. They're always just, again, incredible human beings. But, it's always blows me away that he, out of a whole group of awesome people to talk to, and he spends time talking to me. It's just he's so, so nice. So Joe and Lori, can't say enough good things about Brady's rides. Totally, 100% support them. The Savage Geese guys are also awesome. I know they have a very dry sense of humor, and that doesn't always work for everybody. But Mark and Jack are super great. I love hanging out with them all the time. Roman from Fastlane Cars and Tommy, I always love talking to them. Me and Tommy are kind of both old souls in a lot of ways, where we like quirky, vintagey stuff that a lot of people our generation don't really care about. So me and him always have a fun time kind of talking some of that old, nerdy stuff every once in a while whenever I, get to see him. And Jared from Car Buzz is another one I've been able to get to know a lot more in the past year, especially. And me and him really get along well. We were drive partners on the Invista program, and that was awesome to hang out with him on that some more. And yeah, I mean, I could just go down the list of all the YouTubers, and I have, almost entirely positive things to say about basically everybody in the industry for the most part. They're all just so, so nice. I mean, those are the ones off the top of my head, but that is not by any means a comprehensive list. There are still just so many people that I love talking to on all these events. And I'm incredibly thankful that I'm in these circles that I can call these people friends. And it's very humbling and just very, very fun. And that's honestly the best part about all these trips. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of travel and all that, but it's just so much fun, just hanging out with all these people. And it's just, I feel very, very fortunate to be able to, talk to these people, because they're all, again, very impressive, awesome reviewers, and, talking cars like we do here, these live streams, it's always so much fun. And so doing that with, all of the top YouTubers is, extra fun as well. So, so many fun times. Thanks for the question, Diego. I appreciate it. So anyway, we have hit the 2-hour mark here, and I do have to go. So, Chandra Chris says Kia and the dogs, as far as advertising goes. That one was kind of an interesting one, but if I think of them, maybe I'll mention that in next week's live stream. I'll try and remember the cringy commercials, and we can talk about that more next week. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining. Anyone else who does have a question I didn't get to, please feel free to send me a message on Facebook. That's where I do a lot of back and forth messaging. If you have any questions about car purchases or anything like that, I'm more than happy to figure out all the context for your situation and give you a really good recommendation and help you find a car you'll love, because that's why I do this channel. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining in here. Have a great rest of your Sunday and a great week. Stay tuned for some more great content this week. This week, I'm not going to spoil it because it's a member-only thing, but for those of you who aren't members, just stay tuned. I will have a much anticipated review coming this week, and so be on the lookout for that. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.